Hello and welcome to the Art of Blading, Warband's premier outlet for discussion of the game's competitive legacy. My name is Gibby and I'm joined by PuffTheDragon. Hello, Puff.
Hello there.
And by one of Warband's most powerful warriors, a legendary figure in the community, M. Hello.
Thank you very much for having me.
You're very welcome. Obviously, the most distinguished guest for the first episode.
Yeah, right. It's quite flattering to be the first guest on something. I have to admit, that's nice.
Yeah,
Go
absolutely.
big or go home?
Yeah, go big or go home. I mean, we've got to do something
Yeah.
big at the start. Like.
I mean, as far as I know, maybe you asked like 20 people before me. I was just the first person who said yes. Right?
No, you were the first person we asked, but
Sure.
But like the last time we played together was in God, what was it? NC19?
Yeah, one of our many doomed NC attempts,
Many
right?
doomed. It's
Yeah.
always doomed with the UK for whatever reason, but you haven't really
Eurovision
done.
roster.
It was a good roster. We always have a good roster, but always terrible performance. So.
We have a good roster except for cavalry, don't we? Let's be honest.
I mean,
not to call out the UK cavalry. Such as they are, but...
True. But we had Norman in NC19. Do you remember?
Yeah, he's pretty tasty.
He was doing good. Yeah.
But it's never good. I think it's like a Eurovision sort of, give us nil point sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it always is, to be honest.
I'd like to say it's like a Eurovision. We don't take it as seriously as everyone else thing, but I'm not really.
That's
sure
that's what we always used to say. Like I think like if we do bad, we say we weren't really trying. Like
yeah, we're really trying, but internally we're like, actually, I really think we can win it this year. I actually think we're doing really well.
The thing is, every year if you look at the roster, it does look pretty convincing. That's the thing.
Yeah, I mean it's on paper, isn't it? It's the classic on paper thing.
I mean, it is like NC19, but like, oh, we got like Matt and Apollo and OGL. We got like these 3 sick archers. Like we got with our stacked infantry. We got Norman as cav. Finally, we got like a top tier cav, and then it's just like the same as every year.
Big fizzles.
Yeah.
I mean,
anyway,
I'm not the biggest fan of the NC anyway. It's always a giggle, but I find it more of a social thing than a.
It's never been something UK has gone hard on. Like nations like Poland and Turkey always.
So it turns out we do still say this.
Yeah.
Saying those days are behind us.
Yeah, we say it again. Like... yeah, but since then you've not played much Warband, have you?
I've played basically no Warband since then. I played maybe an hour of Battlelord.
Ooh.
Am I opening a can of worms with that? Should we close that can back up?
I mean, maybe there'll be some mentions of Banlord, but we've left
That's
that
for another
out
episode.
Like,
right?
yeah, like,
this is for the legacy, not for the
for
the disastrous future.
Keep that shit in the shadows.
Yeah, the future does not look bright in that regard. But yeah, I mean, you've not been blading too much, but I believe you did play in the what was it, WRL in 2020?
Did play the WRL. That was, I want to say fun. It was hard work. It's hard to get back into the game after you've been out of it for a long time.
Yeah.
And it felt completely different there. Like there's no battle server. You know what I mean? Like,
no IG to run around in circles on. Like,
am I going to go on IG Battlegrounds? It's like, oh, it's gone.
Yeah.
I look at what the servers are. It's like, oh, should I go on Camelot DM and get called racial slurs, or do I have to load up Internet Explorer and sit in this matchmaking queue to maybe get to play 6v6 in like 45 minutes? So it was hard going to get back into it, and I still had fun. It's not a game that I still intend to play more at some point. Like even after the WRL, when we got into like lockdowns and all of that stuff, me and the AE guys were going on and we were doing, like we were doing little money matches on the Ludus. We were like money bets on and stuff. It was pretty good fun.
Yeah, I mean that's a way to make something out of it when you've got like no IG. Basically, what people are playing publicly is TG Arena and matchmaking. Like
fucking hell, that is cursed, isn't it?
Yeah. And then you get all the like fountain role players on TG
That's
Arena.
What it is, yeah.
Stand
TG,
around not
Camelot.
fighting each other. Like.
Yeah, Camelot's the old one, isn't it, with the weird admin? TG
TG replaced Camelot. Yeah, Camelot was the one where if you kill the wrong admin, they just ban you on it. Like.
That's it. Yeah. TG Arena, the admins are just flying around. They're on a ship or something as well.
But yeah, I mean, we'll definitely get more into the WRL and what went on with that with AE later. But Puff, do you want to start with our first main question?
Of course, the big question as well. How did you get into Warband?
How did I get? I mean, that's
what was the beginning for you?
This has got to be ancient history for you guys. Right? Like, you weren't playing at the start.
This is more than a decade ago. Like,
this is actual archaeology. For
yeah.
We're literally writing down tomes here.
I say it's even more than a decade ago because it's like I first saw like original Mount and Blade at least when it was like doing the rounds on like Game Press because it was like it was one of the first early access games, and back then we were like, wait, is that actually really good? Is this a cool new model? Like we all know better now. We all know it's a cop out now, but we didn't back then. And I saw it. I was like, maybe I'll revisit that at some point. I was like, knee deep into other stuff, so I was like, oh, whatever. I'll come back to that. And then I did maybe like a month before Warband came out, and it was, I was playing it, I was loving it, and I was like, I was doing, just single player because that's all it was. And I was just, slashing looters and stuff, and it was like lighting my brain up. I was like, oh, this is sick. I'm loving this. Like, but I was also like, sort of like a deranged level of competitive back then. So I was like, well, I mean, this is good, but this isn't doing it for me. I need to beat up people.
Yeah, competitive game. Yeah,
exactly. And that's what I was playing before. I was like, I want some more of that. This has been fun, but if it's got no multiplayer, then that's all it is for me. But then I looked online. It was like, oh, Warband's coming out, the new one, the new version, and that has got multiplayer. I was like, oh, that's unbelievable timing. This is coming out. So I looked up videos for that, and there actually wasn't really many. There was like, I think it was like there was like a crap video of like a siege. And I was like, oh, okay. I mean, what a realistic siege. It's like six Nords running at a massive cross. I was like, okay, sick. But there was the other video that was going up in the results was I'm sure you will have seen it at least, Gibby. It's Reepe's dueling video.
Of course.
Beta.
Yeah.
And I thought absolutely sick. I thought this is unbelievably good. I loved that video. I was watching it. I was like, I want to do this. I want to play that exactly like this. And so that's I was setting out to go on the dual servers and do all of that as soon as the game came out, and that's what I did. Like day one when it came out, I got it and downloaded it. And actually, even before that, I was so sure that I wanted to go and do dueling on this game that like I hadn't realized manual blocking was an option in the original Mount and Blade because I was just playing it, you right click it blocks, like every game. Mm-hmm. But I was like, oh, what you actually choose the direction? Oh wow. So I was like in the single player arena, like trying to learn to manual block before Warband was even out. I was like, I'm gonna get a head start on these guys, like.
Yeah.
But I didn't because they'd been playing beta for like 8 months or something.
Yeah. So were you not in the beta then?
I wasn't in the beta. Like I'd only just got Mount Blade like a month before. I was
yeah.
It's too late to get into all that. And there was all these guys. Like when I went on the dual server, I don't think it was Enditions then. It was like something else, some dual server, maybe 20-second dual server or something. And there were like there were these beta guys, not like beta males.
That's what I say every time I go on Ludus.
But there were these beta guys, and they'd been playing a lot, and they had what now would it would look like silly basic tech, but at the time I was just like, whoa, I'm astonished by what they're doing. And they were all really nice, because it's like the small community thing where it's like, mate, how are you doing that? Can you show me how you're doing that? And they would show you, they're really friendly. And that was like that was actually the first taste of a little bit of dueling rivalry I had. I reckon it's like I don't even remember his name, but it's some like do you know the IRC modding group? They sort of had like a clan at the start, and they're like a bunch of modders. I think they made some very successful mods. But they're a bunch of modders, and there was one of those guys on that dual server, and he was being really nice. He was like, he taught me like your baby's first feint, you're like your left right feint.
Left right, yeah.
Exactly. I was like sick. I'm gonna trick so many people.
Not quite the M feint yet.
Yeah, I know. Right? And it was like the IRC chick feint or something. Like some shit like that. He taught me that, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. But he was just battering me, and I was in that unemployed, mentally ill, perfect concoction and competitive thing where I was like, I'm gonna fucking beat you, mate. So and it was quite good because like a couple of weeks later I came back on and I completely slapped him around. So I was like, okay, this is really good. I want to be the best at this. I want to keep doing this. So
yeah, it must have been quite satisfying at the beginning.
It was really satisfying. Like there was obviously those people in the beta who were like a little bit ahead, but there was just thousands and thousands of people coming through.
Yeah.
Many of them not sticking around more than one play session. Maybe they play for a week and then they go. just sort of they're having a go at the game. But some of them sticking around. But there was all of those people coming through, learning the basics,
Yeah.
and you'd learn things from them, they'd learn things from you. It was really exciting.
Even from Warband, the perspective could be quite different compared to other games, because nowadays, when a full-directional multiplayer game like Warband gets released, there's already been quite a few of those games.
Yeah.
Where Warband must have been one of those first ones where obviously no one's coming with prior experience in the beginning.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's so sort of old hat now. There's it's like not even a sort of main selling point. I mean, obviously it's a completely different thing. But when you've got like For Honor, when that came out, it was like I saw that and it's got like the directional blocking and attacking.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, a Warband thing.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
that's a very minor part of its game. Like it doesn't play like that. That's just like
Yeah,
a little quirk it has that's inspired by that.
They've got all
by
those
Warband,
like combo stuff mixed in. That's like it's more like a fighting game really for Honor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Which goes to show how influential it's been that it's not a main mechanic in these games. It's just like it's just a minor thing.
Yeah, a base thing now, isn't it?
Exactly.
It's just, you wouldn't have the game without it. You'd be way below the other games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing with like Banlord, right? It's like everyone coming into Banlord is like, well, not literally everyone, because there's actually some Banlord players I know that still play it that didn't play Warband, which is kind of hard to believe, to be honest. But like almost everyone has played Warband, so it's not like a fresh new combat design, is it? Like everyone knows the basic 4 attack, 4 block. Whereas I imagine when Warband first came out, people are coming in like, wait, you have to like choose the direction of your block, like
exactly,
and it felt good. It felt which is, not to dwell on it, but it's like I think if I came into Bannerlord and it's as it is, I don't think I would have felt that because it's like even if it was new, I don't think I would. It just doesn't have the same satisfaction. But I mean, you never know. Maybe if it was new, I'd still think, oh, this is amazing. Like it's brand new and fresh. But
yeah, I mean that's the thing with like the beginning has got to have been like sort of like everyone arms racing to like just be able to block consistently. Like
blocking was the first big challenge in Warband. Like if you could block the basic hits, it's like, damn, this guy's solid.
This guy's sick.
If you could block like strings of like 2 or 3 feints, it's just like, oh my god.
And you can block the overheads.
Like, yeah, exactly. Yeah, block the overheads like consistently. What?
I mean, but that's the point in the game where like, I mean, to be honest, like you get the biggest power trip, I guess, if you're decent, because like it's a sort of thing where like if you can just block, you can just go on the duel server and go like 50-0 against the random people. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Whereas you go on Ludus now and everyone's like, oh, I can do these feints I saw in like M's videos or whatever. Everyone can do it. Like,
everyone's a killer now. Yeah.
Exactly. Loads of people can block as well now. Like people have got way harder to kill over the years. Like obviously the general skill is just gone up.
Like even when I would go on Ludus in like 2015, which is like, I mean, that's like halfway through between now and when you started playing. But like for me, even in 2015, like there was still a good portion of players on there who like didn't really have a handle on what they were doing.
Yeah, completely different. Different. No one playing Warband in 2021, is like a slouch.
Yeah, exactly.
They've all done some thousands of hours, and their blocking is tasty. Yeah. And if they were back in the day, they would be considered like a big threat, even if now they're just like some geezer on the Ludus.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and it's kind of like because like those sort of inverse feints that I like copied from Toby, basically, like taught me how to do them as well.
Yeah.
And
we all copied stuff from Toby.
Yeah, but like back when I was like first doing them, everyone was like, what are these feints he's doing? Like, the ISIS versus Peter video, like doing those sort of feints that Toby was doing there. Those were like unblockable to most people then. But now, like you go on Ludus and like half the people on there are using inverse and doing that. Like
it's baseline, isn't it? Yeah.
Like half the people are doing that. Like
it's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, inverse. That wasn't a thing. As funny as it sounds, that was only in America, really. I can't speak for like China, Australia, whatever. But back then it was like you had inverse people in America, a few of them, and you had none in Europe. It just wasn't a thing. You had like a couple of keyboard guys, like you had like Maury as a prominent keyboard guy, and you had Toby who played all of them just because there's something wrong with him. But no one did inverse, and now probably 60-70% of people on the Ludus are inverse at least.
Yeah, honestly, the percentage of duelists using inverse is really high. Like
it's just the return hit speed, isn't it? It just gives you an edge.
There's loads of advantages.
And people want to do those feints as well that they see in like the videos or whatever.
Yeah.
There's a lot of reasons it's sick. There's a couple of reasons it's there's a couple of disadvantages to it, but you've got to see the advantages as outweighing the disadvantages, really.
Yeah,
Exactly,
absolutely.
Which is why it's taken off. People take the easiest route, don't they? They're not doing it because it's harder. Like,
No, exactly. In a competitive game like this as well, everyone wants to be the best. So if something will give someone a minor edge, people are always willing to do it. No
yeah, they'll
matter.
take it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a setting you can switch, get used to it, and you'll probably have better results. You see, I can't think of many like names off the top of my head, but you've seen it with a lot of infantry over the years that have switched. Some of them have done badly and they seem to forget how to use a spear, but a lot of them just instantly get better. They instantly start being more effective in their matches and whatever. So it's
I mean, it's interesting because something before I switched to inverse, and I was talking to Toby about it, and he was like, one of his big things he said was don't switch to inverse too early. Like he said, get to a certain level with normal before you switch to inverse, or you'll be bad forever. Is what he told me.
Great advice.
And
Great
and,
advice.
and honestly, I think it's kind of true because like
Yeah.
otherwise you start crutching on the fact you're using inverse rather than using it to enhance what you're doing.
you never. I suppose you never develop the fundamentals, do you?
Yeah, exactly.
You never realize why the things inverse gives you are good.
Yeah.
You just I click this and they die, and then if you
Yeah.
run into someone who doesn't die, you haven't got the other stuff to fall back on at all.
Yeah, and it's not that hard to like. I mean, God, how many hours did I have when I switched? Like 2,000 and something. And I switched, so like undoing all that muscle memory was like a couple of. Actually, I would use both when I first switched. I'd duel with inverse and play battle with normal when I first switched, and I did that for a couple of months.
What's wrong with you? Like,
I did that for a couple of
that is a bit weird, isn't
I
it?
had to get used to inverse, so dueling was how I got used to it. But then I wasn't good enough with it to like consistently do left swings,
yeah.
so I had to use normal in battle, or like I would just like be dead weight because I'd be doing right swings when I'm trying to do left. Like.
When I actually first started using inverse, the thing is, I was actually planning to go back to normal, but the thing is, I played inverse for like 2 or 3 months, and then I went back to normal, and then normal felt like so bizarre. I just couldn't do it, so I just had to stay, and I just kept it.
I didn't even realise you were one of them, Puff.
I am one of them, yeah.
Right. Well, it's been a nice being a guest. I'm off now. In here with a bunch of inverse guys. Fuck this.
I mean, Puff's an elite spearman these days. Like,
I am, yeah. So I don't even use the one-hand blade too much.
Yeah, he spears and leads. Like, it's pretty good.
I mean, the one thing inverse doesn't give you an advantage for. Might as well switch back.
True. That's true.
I mean, I've tried it. I've tried inverse, and I got quite good with it. But yeah, I just ended up I was like,
Bit too much effort.
I've got 7 years of sort of bits of muscle memory.
Yeah.
Despite any breaks you take, you've still got bits of old muscle memory. So
yeah,
I'm never going to learn to chamber with.
Oh, it was a nightmare learning to chamber with inverse. So yeah. But yeah, but I mean, we've spoken about Duel quite a bit, but I guess we've spoken about how you got into it as well. Maybe did you find like those repeat videos sort of were a big influence then on you getting into Duel?
Definitely. I mean, I love like before. Like it's funny to think about, but like when Warband was coming out, like streaming of games hadn't even really taken off.
Yeah.
People's internet was too crap. Like you had like people maybe like with really good internet doing like a few games on like Justin TV before it was Twitch TV.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a big thing. Like the gamer kind of swag thing at the time was like frag videos in different games. You'd have like. Yeah. You'd have like Counter-Strike little edits of like aces and stuff. You'd have like, PvP videos with like emo music on and stuff like that. It was always that sort of thing, and I love those. As you can probably tell,
I can tell that
I got on Warband.
I just started to say some of the beginning videos you released were exactly like
basically that
on Battlegrounds, killing people. With music on.
Exactly that, exactly. So I saw that, I was like, okay, well this looks like a really good game for that sort of thing. And I couldn't do it for some time because I had just the worst computer you've ever seen in your life. Like I completely degraded Mountain Blade Warband to like below the lowest possible graphics. Like my screenshots of back then, it's like the trees don't have leaves. they're like lower level of detail models than the game gives you by default. You know what I mean? It's like it's so disgusting. Like,
actually looks like a cursed background.
Yeah, it's absolutely awful. I'm playing like 320 by 240, and everything's just like the most disgusting single polygon. But yeah, still good enough mechanics that I just didn't care what it looked like. It's absolutely fine. But yeah, as soon as I got a better computer, I was like, yeah, well, keep this rolling. I can actually make videos now. And that's what I want to do.
By the way, with the duel stuff, would you ever say you had any rivals over the years? Like any other duelers that kept bringing, or like were always a challenge? Loads of them?
Loads of them. But I mean, like I was absolutely just insanely competitive back then. I've mellowed out. I've still got that side to me, but I've mellowed out quite a lot on that these days. I'm older and perhaps a little bit wiser. But back then, like someone beating me more than I was beating them, absolutely, that's going to keep me up at night.
Unacceptable.
I'm sweating.
Like, yeah.
I'm sweating. I'm thinking about it as I go to sleep. I'm thinking about it as I wake up. I've got nothing else to do in my day. I'm going on there and I'm grinding until I'm beating them.
I think everyone's had that stage in Warband. That's why it was so addictive as a competitive game.
But I mean, you know, I've had you know, loads of randoms on editions at the early stage. I had like Maury, like Toby, Peter, Bloody Death. I had you, Gibby, at different points, probably several different points. You know, Fisk, and loads of weird dual clan Germans that were like hot for like, you know, a month, and it's like, why is this goddamn kid beating me? And then they're not anymore. But you know, they're all rivals. I'd probably say my longest term one is BD, like Bloody Death, because he's always there, and he's always seemed to specifically want to beat me, and for like a lot of the time he has. Like a lot of the time when I've managed to beat him in tournaments, it's because he's got in his own head, not because he's been worse than me or whatever. Like, but when we're practicing, like it's been like, you know, he'll 7-0 me, 7-0 me, 7-0 me, and I'll keep demanding more first sevens. But yeah, he's just been absolutely perennial.
Yeah, how did you get into sort of like, because something I don't really know in much detail from like early editions, like how was your thing with Toby? Like what was going on there?
Well, I mean, I didn't even really have that much of a thing with Toby. Like he was around about just all the time, and you know, but at that time there was loads of people like that who were around about at that time. You know, people who, you know, didn't really stay on with it and stuff like that. But Toby was always there, and I was always there, and we had loads and loads of good duels. But yeah, like you mentioned earlier, like the M feint, as people call it, like that. Like I figured that out copying something I'd seen Toby do. Like it could easily, it's a proto Toby feint, really. You know what I mean? Like as most feints in the game are. The guy's an absolute powerhouse of inventing tech. Like it's just crazy. Like I think people don't realize how much sort of like stuff that everyone does now was invented by him. It's baffling. Like it is actually really weird because his skill is absolutely unbelievable. Like he can play any of the like little input modes on the game, you know, inverse or keyboard, or probably by enemy relative position or whatever. He can play all of them as well as anyone else can do one of them. But he doesn't. It's like he doesn't care. He's a very strange personality. Like,
yeah, like from my time when Toby was like teaching me how to play, it was like he has he's like, I want you to stay on Ludus and I want you to do this movement pattern for 20 minutes.
Is he your sensei? I didn't even. Is he your actual sensei?
Yeah,
I didn't realize that.
But that was in 2014 because I came from Full Invasion 2, right? And I started dueling on native. And with my Micey Full Invasion 2, so I won't lie, like I was like okay, like I could do some basic stuff, but like I wanted Cos K to teach me, you know, like
Cos K. That's so good. So he was like, you know what, kid, you've got spirit. Took you under his wing, right? I had no idea that was what was happening.
Maxima and I were like rival students, like this because when I wanted Toby to teach me, right, I came on, he was like, oh, I want you to duel like this person I'm teaching called Maximu. This was in 2014. So like that's when me and Maximu started like dueling each other, and Maximu was definitely better than me then, and he was better than me for a while until like I got properly into the inverse stuff, and sort of left him behind for a little bit. Although he did come back, didn't he? But
eventually, right?
Yeah, but I mean,
Toby had a couple of little shadow apprentices.
Yeah,
I had no idea. This was going on. Like, he's always got his finger in some weird pies. So like, he occasionally messages me now, saying that I should saying he's making loads of money on NFTs.
NFTs. He's told me about those.
He's like, oh, you should mint your M videos as NFTs. I'll buy them. I'm like, no, leave me alone.
I mean, Toby's insane, but like in game, like he can do everything. When he's dueling casually, like he can do everything. Like he's like spinning around and like chambering things mid spin and like jumping around and stuff. And you're like, what is he doing? But I think, I don't know, like in the tournaments and things, I feel like he does get a bit pressured out of it. Like,
he gets pressured out for sure. He's one of those people who's got all the skill in the world, but doesn't make it count at the right times.
Yeah.
Not that he had, like, he's won tournaments, you know, he's
of course.
he's put down the best in the game at different points, you know. But he like he could have been completely dominant for different parts of Warband, and he just wasn't.
I think he
Wasn't
can. I think he
interested.
always tries to do. He's always trying to do too much.
Yeah.
Like, 'cause it's fun to do too much when you're dueling casually, right? Because you just do
Yeah.
everything at once and it's kind of crazy. But like when you're in a tournament, you gotta
You got to be a bit
stop
measured,
yourself
right?
from doing too much. Like you gotta be like, okay, I'm only doing a little bit at a time in a row. Like,
Yeah, it's about the hip lock and like the good feints, if you get me.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, feeling people out, putting some pressure on without pressuring yourself, and
Yeah.
he
Exactly.
pressures himself massively because
Well,
it's
if you-
like,
yeah.
right, well, I need to do a 1080 spin. You know,
Ten-
it's like,
ten-
no,
ten-
you don't need to actually, mate. You can
Ten-
just chill out and let them kill themselves
like
once in a while.
1080 chamber into a sky feint is what he's
Yeah,
trying to
yeah.
do, and
Yeah,
it's
it's like-
like you don't actually need to do that. Like,
It is 1,000% or nothing, isn't it? Really.
Yeah.
yeah.
I wouldn't have him any differently though. He's one of the people who made the community as it is.
Yeah.
You know, that's you need those characters really.
Yeah, and like all of this inverse stuff that people do now would never have happened without Toby inventing half that stuff like that everyone does with inverse. So
Yeah, because that's the thing I was just about to say. Like, even like obviously you coined it the M feint, or people called it the M feint. There can't really be any feints like that nowadays that get discovered, because you got to think most of the feints now are already
everyone's basically
known.
done everything. Like,
Everything's done. Everyone's done everything, so it's kind of
Mhm.
no more moves to coin.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, people have figured out, but I mean, people don't bother coining the moves anymore. That was something that was really nice in early Warband, and it's something we did in like early AE quite a lot when we were all, because we didn't really know each other before we got into AE that much. We
Yeah.
played together a little bit, but we were all, we're all getting to know each other, and we're all like naming moves that we had. Like Legion 6, who was in the early AE, was absolute. Yeah, he must have had about 20 named moves, most of which were like snake themed. He's like, yeah, this one's the snake bite. He had absolute tons of them.
yeah.
Fucking twin cobra strike.
Exactly, yeah. And that's quality. Like, you want people doing that sort of stuff, because that's when you get people inventing cool new stuff,
Yeah.
is when they can have a silly name for it, like especially a name that's like leads back to them.
Yeah.
And as like silly as it is, like the M feint thing, the one thing I do like have you seen that video? It's like some American guy.
Yeah, I've seen the
like
yeah,
doing it in real life with like a LARPing sword.
Yeah.
It's one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life.
I think there's like
Um,
those tutorials by those American guys as well, like how to do M fade
Yeah,
and stuff.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
like by the way, when did M fade start? Like when did people start calling it that?
I don't know, maybe 2013ish.
Yeah.
I mean, it was something I worked out how to do, and then I was crutching on it for quite a long time because it was working. It was like like we were saying with inverse, if you hadn't learned how to play first, it was
Yeah.
like that for me, because it's like, oh, I got this feint that works on nearly everyone. I'll keep doing that. I don't need to do anything else.
Exactly. Yeah. If it works, why
Yeah.
not use it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I think it was the Americans who called it that actually.
Yeah. Oh, what they called it the M fade?
I think so.
I mean, that would make sense, I suppose, if they'd like not really seen it before, and then when
'Cause
you
I think,
played in NA, they're like,
no one was doing it.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, they had a quite, I think the American scene actually gets too much shit from the European one over the years. Like, people treat it as a bit of a joke, and I don't think it's quite fair. Like, because they had like quite a good dueling scene at the start. Not necessarily good in terms of skill, but they were like pushing it. Like
Yeah.
my first I'd won like, I think, a couple of like little internal clan tournaments and like little daily tournaments and stuff on servers early on in Warband. But like the first like big public, sign up on the forums tournament that was in NA,
yeah,
which I won. But but like they were pushing the boundaries on that, and they had people experimenting different. They had people, as much as I think it's a shit idea, they had people experimenting with different servers for the settings for the servers. They had people doing
Yeah.
fastest, and they had their own culture around open maps, which I think in some ways was like more healthy than what we're doing in Europe and what we've continued to do in Europe, which is sort of make them less and less open over the years.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Theirs wasn't necessarily good, but it was different. It had its own strengths. And that it's a shame their community petered out quite as much as it did.
It really faded. Like, geez, I mean, the last big thing they had was WPL2, right? And that was 5 years ago, or whatever. Now.
Yeah, I mean,
like-
even then it was drips. and
Yeah,
drabs, wasn't
even
it?
yeah,
Like,
exactly. Even then, that was like the last thing they did. Like,
Yeah, but I think they should get some more props for what they did. Really,
Yeah.
it was good stuff, especially in Duel, and they had some really good people. They had as funny as it sounds to consider this a positive, but they had people that like people were accusing them of cheating in Duel. like maybe 2 years before we had that in the EU, and it wasn't because they were cheating, I don't think, but they had kind of in isolation come up with tech that was good enough that people were like, "There's no way you're not cheating,"
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was like, if you switch from Enditions, which was main Europeans one at the time, and you switch over to like GK Duel or like the central one,
Yeah.
POM Central, the cultural difference was massive. Like what people just were doing was completely different.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's cool to see that kind of like people doing the same kind of task, but they're like coming up with completely different ways of doing it, just because they're isolated from each other a bit.
Which of course is something that's quite cool about, like, I guess the early to mid stages of the game, because when you get to the late stage, everyone's sort of tried everything, haven't they?
Yeah.
Whereas like earlier on, it's sort of like all these different communities coming up with their own different ways of doing duel and battle and whatever.
Yeah, and it was really stark, even because obviously we're talking about 2010. As like silly as it sounds, like some of the tech that we had in Europe that they didn't have at the time. Because I was going over there, I was playing some of the players to prepare for this tournament. I was like, right, let me make a few notes about what people do and what they know and stuff like that. And like some of their most prominent duelists didn't know that polearms like spears could stun with an overhead and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they were doing all sorts of stuff with like short swords, inverse with short swords and stuff like this that no one in EU would ever dream of doing.
Yeah.
We were all playing with like bastard swords and stuff, but they didn't know that. And I was just like, that's crazy that we have such a different sort of evolution.
Yeah, like of course
Complete different
things
styles
different
as
ways.
well, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean that's something I found interesting when I ended up playing in NA later on. But like at that point, honestly, they were just sort of copying. After like Oodle and Tito and stuff would all stop playing or whatever, the ones that were left were sort of just copying what the EU people were doing.
Yeah. I mean, that you don't just go to. Don't think I haven't seen you. I've seen you in like South America. You're in China. You're in
I play everywhere.
I world warrior. Like he goes to every continent.
I'm just fascinated by like the different communities and like and the South American one was. I mean, this isn't about me, but like the South American one was a big like project I had. Where there were these. Okay, so the South American scene is dominated by Argentinian players, right?
Okay.
And there was this group of Brazilians, like this Brazilian clan, who all the Argentinians used to shit on and like trash talk them, call them like trash like Brazilian players or whatever. And they were molding about it, right? And this South American tournament came out, and I posted on the forums like, oh, I'd be interested in playing. And all these Brazilian guys contacted me like, we need you to train us to beat the Argentinians. So
when the student becomes the sensei.
Yeah. So
Toby's teachings fly across the Atlantic.
Exactly, and I just ended up teaching like how to play battle properly to this like Brazilian clan. And I honestly took them just from like teaching them how to like push, right? That you had to push in a coordinated way, and then they ended up being like the top 2 at least clan in South
Contenders
America.
At the very least. Yeah. Nice.
That was like a fun little thing, but
that's cool. I mean that's something you get in like little communities like Warband, isn't it? You get like mentorship, don't you? It's nice.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose speaking of like clans and tactics, maybe we should move on to talking about AE a bit and how you ended up being involved in that.
Oh man, fuck those guys, like.
Yeah. Why you got the AEM on TeamSpeak right now?
Yeah, I know, right? Nah, I mean, I consider a lot of those boys like my best mates, really. At this point, like we've been playing stuff together for just like a decade.
That's the thing. Like AE throughout the years has stuck together. You guys have been like playing together for so long now.
Yeah, I mean we send like 1,000 messages a day on WhatsApp. Like I met up with Deacon and Cleric to do like a hike in Wales the other week. We're all really close. But yeah, we've stuck through it sort of thick and thin, really. Mainly thick. We've done quite well.
You have done well for yourselves.
Done quite well, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean the way that came about was well, I mean I know more about my side of it, which was like I was like without a team for like maybe a year. I was just in the wilderness dueling.
Yeah.
Just in the desert meditating and dueling. But that was
that Shaolin warrior.
Yeah, exactly. no mentor, Gibby. I had to be my own mentor in those days, right? Yeah. But that was because I'd been kicked from IG. Things got heated.
Well, how did it get heated? Like,
well, it was like egos clashing. Like I was saying, I was like competitive to the point of like having no social skills. You know what I mean? I was I was just like, I want to be the best of this.
Yeah.
And like, so I was butting heads with
Maybe a bit more toxic.
I was internally toxic. I kept
Yeah.
quite a good seal on it most of the time, but when it came out, it came out, and it was with Lord Willie. I don't know if you know. He probably
I've
stopped
I've
playing
heard
before.
the name.
Heard
You've
the
Yeah.
name. Heard
yeah.
the name.
He is a very good player. He was one of IG's other like top imps.
Yeah.
And so if he's another contender for being like IG's best imp, I'm gonna butt heads with him obviously. At that time, but like well, it was like they were giving him opportunities to lead matches, and he was doing an absolute piss poor job of it, and I was getting all salty, and I let him have it. And what I said doesn't need repeating. That can stay in the archives.
Stay in the grave.
Yeah, I don't know what age rating you've got on the on the podcast, but we'll leave that be. But yeah, I don't blame him for kicking me. That it was well earned. But yeah, after that, I just did dueling. I was like, wow, well, because I liked IG. I still like what IG did for the community.
Yeah.
They were really central to it being successful. And I liked everything about it really, apart from like some of the cringe sort of role play stuff they did.
Yeah.
Where it's like, as funny as it is me calling it cringe when we've talked about Toby being your sensei, but they had like quite an embarrassing system of like knights and squires and stuff like that. You know what I mean? It's just like, oh Christ, I'm already an adult playing this game. You know what I mean? I can't be doing with this as well. But I really liked him. I didn't want to play for another team. I didn't want to join another team. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just focus on dueling, which I really like anyway. And I think I posted some flippant comment on the forums saying, like, I'd quite like to get back into battle at some point.
Kind of sold yourself.
Yeah, I know, right? Well, not to be big-headed, but I actually didn't need to sell myself at that point. No, people thought I was the shit, so I was like, okay, well, I'll just sort of drop a little thing like that. And Deacon messaged me and sort of said, are you serious about that? Because he's putting together a team. And I think what was going, I don't know the full story from their side of it because I wasn't in it, but I think what was going on there is, I think in Wolfpack they had sort of two factions of people. There was like a group that really wanted to go more competitive. They wanted to, they wanted to train. They wanted to play the players who were going to win matches. They wanted to win matches, and they had a group of players who were sort of there. They still wanted to play matches and they still wanted to win, but it was more of a social thing for them.
Yeah.
And they wanted to make sure everyone got sort of good play time, even if they were absolute weren't ready to play matches really. And I think that's something like lots and lots of teams had. It's like a teething problem, lots of teams had that at the start of Warband, and they all sort of dealt with it different ways. Like IG had quite a good model for that. Like they had what they called a citizen branch.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, and it was a good system because they can accept anyone who wants to join the team, join the clan.
Yeah.
Who fits in with them. They just have to be a normal human being and they can join, and they can come to the trainings. The trainings aren't matches at that point. They're literally coming along and practicing shield walls and skirmishing and stuff. And that was a good system, but other teams weren't dealing with it as well. I don't think Wolfpack was dealing it quite as well. So you had like this big conglomerate of players that was like, you list them off now, it's like absolute worldies, but at the time, they were in Wolfpack, they were there. I knew a lot of them from duel server because they were big duelists. So you had like you had Deacon, Cleric, Azan, you had Bliv, you had Legion 6, you had their other mates. There was like Moak and Etan, I think, some Swedes that Bliv knew. And they were all like, we're going to start clan as well, and they'd already lined up other lads as well. So they had other sort of, they had Captain Lust, he was joining. He was like a founder of AE as well. And some others, and we were just like, yeah, let's give it a go. So
it was like the idea of it to be like a highly competitive team then.
Yeah, that was like, well, like, and they were sort of similar like me, like really competitive.
Would you say A was one of the first teams to go full competitive? Like you said, there were teething problems with our teams.
Probably one of the first that was like full competitive, because you had the groups, like you had the military branch in IG, and you had like the mega clans, like you had like the Russian ones like DRZ and all that, which are they've got like 150 members.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so maybe internally they've also got a competitive core, and then there's just like 100 hangers on. But I think we were probably one of the first that was really out there just to be like, quite a slim competitive only team.
Yeah, I mean,
Focus
so
on sets and obviously
Yeah.
a
Exactly,
smaller roster.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you say like by slim, do you mean like roster size?
Yeah, roster size.
Because
So,
I
mean,
think
yeah,
even by like today's standards, what you started with was probably quite a lot of people.
it was big.
Yeah.
And we only grew it. And I mean that was actually a bit of a point of contention, really. It's like I like I say as a founding member, Lust left within like the first week.
Yeah.
Like on good terms. It wasn't like we pissed each other off or whatever. It was just it wasn't what he thought it was going to be. Because I
Yeah.
think he wanted to join it. And in like retrospect, I think what he was trying to do was really healthy for the scene. Like what he was trying to do was set up a kind of competitor to the kind of entrenched IG sort of status quo,
Yeah.
because IG was winning stuff. They would dominate. Like they had like on the website they had like just a clean record of about
Yeah.
25 matches won or something with no losses. It was really dominant.
Insane. Yeah.
Yeah. And he wanted to make a competitor to that. But once we got the ball rolling and we were like, okay, we're going to make this team, we're going to win. People that I knew from IG were like, can we join also? And so it's like, well, I'm not going to turn down Crusader. I'm not going to turn down LaRue. Like, you're an idiot if you do.
Yeah.
So we got them across as well immediately. And Lust is thinking, well, you're not challenging the status quo here. You're just replacing it. Yeah. So he left on good terms. It's like I fully understand what he's doing. I think that's quite a cool decision, frankly. But yeah, we were out there to be, and credit to IG, they actually managed to stay competitive when we poached, or not necessarily poached, but we'd attracted like a lot of their really prominent members who were like their sort of skill base at the start. They obviously took a dip, but the people like Oliveran and Harmon and stuff managed to keep that as like a healthy team that was sort of top of the middle table or whatever for like tournament after tournament after tournament.
Well, they still did quite well after A started, right? They were still like a top team.
They did great. They did great. I mean, they still had a lot of players, and it was part of their sort of healthy culture that they would take anyone.
Yeah.
That they had just this big crop. Like one of the less good things they did was they had a policy on like IG Battlegrounds where they were the only team who were allowed to recruit on IG Battlegrounds, which was sort of shitty. But it made their community absolutely thriving. And even though we poached a load of guys, there was still a core of like skillful guys. You had like Christo the Vicious, you had like Archivist, you had like you had a Liver, and you still had a really good Inf core. They still had a good Cav core. They still had good leadership because Harmon had been the one doing the strats before. He had been like sort of training Crusader how to do them before Crusader left.
Yeah.
So they still had their leadership. They still had a core of good players.
Do you think there was a little bit of rivalry though because of that?
We had big beef. We had lovely beef. Like it was so good.
They must have been the A's first biggest rival then.
Yeah, most
definitely.
Of that
reason.
Like it was childish. It was like ridiculous hammed up beef.
Yeah.
But it was so much fun. Like we had like a good sort of. I mean, it was quite fierce animosity, really. But it was like, it was a good back and forth. It wasn't like one sided. Like we had we were winding them up constantly. Like when you bring up the menu in Warband and you put the mouse to the edge of the screen and it like spins really slowly.
Yeah.
We were doing that on their corpses when we were just really really slowly turning, and it's the most infuriating shit you've ever seen. But we kept doing that, and Gultar from IG was like he was like joining our team speak all raging. We had Archivist and Christo. They were like it was like they were trying to cyberbully some of my pals who were still in IG. It was like they were all kicking off. And it was all like, looking back on it, it's all like quite silly and embarrassing. But it made that point of like Warband really really like intense. Like, you get on there, it's like, IG have said what? Who did they say that to? Let's fuck them up. And they were doing the same back to us. It was great, really good.
I mean, that's the kind of thing that Warband these days is completely lacking. Like
exactly, that's what I was.
And for years as well. For years, have been lacking that sort of thing. Like,
I mean, you can't have it nowadays because like
teams don't stay around. Like they don't stick around for long enough to have
it. Even.
Like,
how are you going to have that kind of culture clash where you can kick off if next tournament Gibby's not playing for Oida, he's playing for whatever.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
You
exactly.
can't have it that now, and especially because everyone, the community is so small that everyone has known everyone for years. Like after like the teams, like the other teams we've had as like rivals, it's like the Curvers, the
Yeah.
Random Potatoes, the Freelancers, all those sort of teams. It's like at the time, it's like fuck those guys,
Yeah.
but they're still around, and it's like you meet them at like we met them at Battle of
Yeah,
Beacons. Like they're nice guys. You had a nice chat with them. Have a
Yeah.
nice chat with Relax and Sotomersa or whatever. They're good lads. But you're not gonna like make friends with these people and hang out with them and play with them in different teams and then have a beef with them the next month because
Yeah.
you already
You already
know they're
know. Yeah,
all right.
you actually know
Yeah.
them. Like they're not
Yeah.
just a name that you like
Yeah.
you kill on the
Exactly.
server. Like you actually know them. Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is, the scene does love a healthy competitive between teams because even the people that weren't in those teams must have been enjoying the rivalry between those because it creates a certain environment, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It does. Yeah. I mean I think a lot of people would call it toxic, but
Mm.
and I think a lot of people don't actually like it. They find it like they find it not a nice atmosphere to be in.
Yeah.
But I loved it.
I
think
mean,
it was great.
I like that kind of thing. And I think I mean, I get it's toxic, but I think it's honestly healthy to have some degree of that for competitive
I
scene.
think
I think it is as well.
I
yeah.
think if you don't have a little bit of that, your scene's not as
Yeah.
competitive as you think it is. You know what I mean? I think it's
'Cause-
it's lost something.
Yeah, because there has to be that sort of like I don't want to say personal element, but there's got to be an element where you're like, this guy's like he's killed me and called me bad. Like I've got to
Yeah.
get back at him. Like
Some sort
Well,
of
it-
emotion tied to winning
Yeah,
and losing.
yeah.
Exactly, and it needs to be like I don't want to win this so that I've won this. I want to win this so he's lost it as well.
Yeah, yeah,
Exactly,
exactly. You want to have beat them so you can type on the forums like,
Exactly
what
that.
are you chatting? You're higher rated than me. I trashed you in
Yeah,
this.
exactly, exactly.
Like, you want to be able to say that shit to them on the forums. Like,
You need that. You do need that.
You
yeah,
do.
And it's something that I think is going to be hard to foster. Should anyone have the motivation to in Bannerlord?
I mean, there
it's,
is actually that in Bannerlord, and it's funny
There
you
is.
mentioned that but only between two teams. We've seen RM and DM, the two
I've
two
actually
top
seen.
teams.
I
The-
rate what they're
the
about.
only reason I mean RM want me to come back and they lost the most recent tournament. They're asking me to come back and play for them again. I haven't decided if I'm going to because I do not know if I want to start fucking playing Bannerlord again. Like, jeez.
Sure.
But like those two teams have like. I mean, the members in each of those two teams have said themselves the only reason they still play Bannerlord is to play against each other.
Yeah.
Because they're just by far the two top teams, right? And they just beef all tournament and make like
Yeah.
videos on each other and they like make like meme videos on each other. Like...
I really rate that. I mean, when Bannerlord was first, people were starting to play it a bit. And I think I don't know. I think it was DM, not RN. I can't remember. But they were posting on the forums.
Yeah.
Saying they're like masters of whatever, and that like
Yeah, it was DM.
like it was DM, and they're calling out Warband boomers, and obviously it's targeted at me. But I felt such a warm glow. I was just like, look, there's life in the old girl yet.
Yeah,
Look, they're going for it. There's I like that.
I mean,
like that a
that's the only thing that's interesting about that competitive scene, to be quite honest. Like those two, and then for all the other teams in Div A, they get like 12-0'd by those two. They're just trying to catch up, and that's their
Yeah.
motivation to try and like
Exactly,
join that rivalry.
Because there's giants
wanna get in on
scene
it,
compared
like-
to them, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
That's unfortunate. Like you need the good mid-table teams, and I think
Yeah.
that's what made not necessarily early Warband when it was like everyone was sort of figuring out what they were doing, but that sort of middle period where it was like maybe 2012, 2013 ish. Funny to call that a middle period, right?
Yeah.
That
I mean, these
period
days,
where
yeah.
everyone had found their feet, but there was still a lot of people around.
Yeah.
And everyone was still sort of clashing. That made that really competitive because back then there was like good mid-table teams, and maybe nowadays you have like the top couple of teams, and then you have a bunch of dribblers. Say,
Yeah.
they're not gonna win against the top.
Yeah,
couple
No,
of
I
they're
mean,
not really gonna
in
be able to beat 'em.
6v6, like sometimes you get a third one who's like kind of tasty. Like I remember that one
Sure,
you were in Multipuff in that 6v6 one, and
Yeah.
like you guys almost beat the Dopey team, right? That was like
We
Anchor,
did,
Brian,
yeah, on the-
Thor, Matt. You almost beat them.
Yeah, we smashed them on the closed map and they beat us on the open.
Yeah. So that in 6v6 you can sort of get that going now, but in 8v8,
Yeah.
100% you've got
It's
two
not
top
happening,
teams
is
and
it?
that's
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
I mean that was really nice because you had like I mean there was some big upsets. Like it probably doesn't sound much now, but they were like staggering upsets at the time. I think it was
Yeah.
like Castellan beating, I don't know if it was Kerr or Random Potatoes or whatever. It was
Was there one in 2015 where Unity beat like Koa in the quarters? They beat them like
yeah,
hard,
yeah.
and then they lost 12-0 to AE in the semis or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. But I mean, there was also Nameless, like
Yeah.
just bodied AE one time
Yeah.
as well. And it was at a time when we were just winning and winning and winning and winning and winning. Like we weren't losing training matches, we weren't losing proper matches, we weren't losing at all.
Absolutely bodying everyone.
And they completely slapped us down, and we were just astonished. We were just like laughing on TeamSpeak throughout the match because we just couldn't believe our eyes what was going on.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like, oh, what we're playing well, but they're still winning. What's going on? Like it was like me and Cleric Johnson go into the little alley on Village when people still played Village, obviously, and like one of their guys, I think it was I don't know who it was. I bet it's on video somewhere. Just killed us in 2 strikes. It was like, and we're just like, what?
Yeah,
like you had upsets like that sometimes from mid-table teams because Nameless wasn't even one of the like good teams. It was like Watley's. Watley's latest
I remember
team,
when I started playing WoW in 2014. Watley was telling me all about Nameless. Like,
yeah,
he was really proud of that, to be honest.
I mean, he'd gone through a lot of sort of fading clans that he sort of made, and that one really stuck.
Yeah.
Maybe because he bodied us. Like maybe that's what they needed. But it was, Nameless ended up being a good team.
I mean that's the sort of thing that would keep a clan together,
Yeah.
right? Like they get a big result like that, and you can ride that for months. Like.
Yeah, and it's like if you're having a tough time after that, it's like, look, we beat AE 3 weeks ago. Let's just chill. And, we can do.
We'll get it
stuff.
back. Yeah, exactly. Like.
Yeah, that sort of thing's good.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, from my perspective, like I guess 2015 for me, even though like I wasn't a top player in 2015, right? But that was like I really enjoyed that period because you had 3 top tier teams of AE Koa freelancers, and then you also had Unity, Wonwoki, IR, Castellan, all 4 who could beat one of those 3 if they had a good game.
Yeah, they're all close with each other. They play against each other. You don't know who's going to win. They play against the top team. It's worth watching.
Like they could upset it.
It might be an upset. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like for me, that was like 3 like top tier teams, and then 4 like mid under those ones who can win on a good day. And it's like that for me, even though I was in Wonwoki and we didn't have a great time of it. And so I mean, we beat freelancers in that one game, right? That was like our big.
Well, I mean that says it all, doesn't it?
Yeah.
When Wonwoki are taking out freelancers, that really shows. Like.
Yeah, but
anyone
like
could do it.
Yeah,
anyone could come through for the mid and just like shock the top. It was a really 2015 was a really good time, yeah.
But it's a sort of thing like I don't know, even like a couple years ago where you just have like FT and Unity and then you've got like nothing. Like maybe Malta can win, like they have a really really good game, and then there's nothing under that. Like it's kind of
it's a shame, but people want to win. It's people occasionally do it as almost like a charity project, but the top guys aren't going to go and play for what they think is like a crap middling team.
No.
They want to play for one of the 2 top teams. Like I cannot blame them at all. If anything, I blame them if they did the opposite.
Yeah.
It's just unfortunate that the population is down that much that's how it stratifies.
Yeah, basically it has to be.
Yeah.
But speaking of those glory days where there was competition, when would you say your most competitive era was as like a clan? Like which era did you feel
as
was
a clan,
the most competitive?
Well, as a team, I probably is that 2015, like that sort of time. Like I think we were almost on the downswing by then.
Yeah.
In terms of we weren't playing as much. We were still winning things, but we definitely weren't at like the peak of our activity. Our peak of activity was probably sort of 2013.
Yeah.
So I mean, we were still winning, and honestly, a lot of the matches and tournaments and stuff we were winning, but that by that point, was almost people just kind of handing us games because it's like, oh god, we're playing against AE.
Yeah, exactly. The fear factor.
Exactly. They're expecting to lose, and they do a lot of the time. There's a bit of a push and shove, and it's not always the case. But some of those seem like freelancers, Random Potatoes or Kerr or whatever they were. Their players on paper at some of these tournaments were like better than ours.
Yeah.
And then sometimes they'd make it happen, and sometimes they wouldn't.
Yep.
And
I mean, I feel like 2014 was the most dry year in that regard. I don't know if you think that's true, but I remember like 2014 was when I started playing native competitively, and I remember like that was what the tournament where Agincourt got second in that WNL. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, that was like as absolutely huge for the scene WNL was over the years.
Yeah.
Like that was a bit of a
Through some like
a dropped ball in
shenanigans with
format,
like
wasn't it?
yeah with the format, and they ended up getting
Yeah.
second. And it was I remember people being very unhappy about that. But in the rest of the tournament, there was no other like top team, like from
Yeah.
my perspective. Like there was there was Saracens who were doing well. There was like IR, Raiden was and Relax were playing with IR in that one, right?
Yeah.
And then there was Sons of the Emperor and stuff, but none of them were on par with AE.
No,
in
we
2014.
that was just a sort of easy year.
Yeah.
And it was there was competition. Like was it freelancers then?
No, Freelancers was 2015.
Who was 2014? Was that?
I think we're in the first half of it. We're playing, yeah, not in the second half for sure.
Because I think there was a team that just didn't join that tournament because they were out to beat us, and we
Yeah.
did our typically dramatic thing of like signing up at the last possible moment.
I mean that might be why.
massive
Yeah.
That literally might be why they didn't see that we joined, and so they didn't join.
That might be why Raiden and Relax ended up in IR in that tournament.
That could have been what it was.
Yeah.
But I remember because I made a video, I think, of us. It might have been that one of us winning that WNL.
Yeah.
And I sort of made a tongue-in-cheek comment, like in the description, where it's like, "Oh, AE runs home in the like most competitive WNL yet."
Yeah.
And people got mad. I was people were kicking off at me about it. It's like, no, it wasn't actually. This team wasn't in it. This team. I was like, oh
Yeah.
God. I do know. Like I know.
Yeah.
Christ.
I mean, yeah, like that was the first WNL I played in actually. That one where Agincourt got second. I think our team got 30th or something. But
I mean, that goes to show the length of Warband's lifespan at this point, because
yeah,
that feels really late into Warband for me.
yeah,
That's when you were first starting competitive, and probably
Yeah.
by now you've played Warband longer than me, like in hours, I'd imagine.
I mean,
I wouldn't be surprised.
in years. I mean, I'm looking at what like 7 years of constant activity.
That's
Like
more
that-
than
that's-
me.
that's-
I've had big sort of several year breaks.
I mean, you were like consistently active up to 2017. Very beginning of 2018, I think, was your last.
You'd be
main
surprised.
WNL.
Like I hadn't played in nearly a year before Battle of Bucharest. I hadn't played it
Yeah.
really at all. And I'm not making excuses. But I had a good month of getting back into
Yeah.
it. It's just I had lots of periods like that where it's just like, I'm not
I
gonna
think
play
I think you played in WPL2. I don't think you were that active then, but
no, maybe that's what it. Maybe I'm just like I didn't.
but
consider it
I do
playing.
remember you were definitely in it because that was the first one I joined AE for. So I remember
Okay.
you were in it, but I don't think you were that active. No,
Yeah.
I think you were sort of cruising along on like
Cruising on my
like
laurels.
couple scrims a week, like yeah.
Yeah. Probably felt like a lot of the time. So,
Yeah.
oh man, I've got to play some more Warband.
But yeah, like 2015, would you say that was different then when you had like freelancers co-op? Did that like give you some new enthusiasm in that year or not?
Definitely. I mean, definitely. It was. That's a great time for Warband, isn't it?
You had that 3v3 with Arnie, Rempica, and Acto. Do you remember that
Let
as well?
Arnie
That was
play.
in that year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Only play.
Love that. I think Cleric quite often still watches that video. When he's hungover, maybe he'll stick that on and have a watch.
Well, Cleric's got that famous, or is it Peter? He does the jump in that one from that GIF. Like, it used to be in someone's GIF on the forums. Like,
Yeah, I mean the play does it. It's 6 years ago. The play doesn't exactly look staggering on there.
no.
At the time, I played well above my level because I was a bit out of it.
Yeah.
And I think I've got a couple of good little clutches on there as well. That was a good tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I think it sort of speaks to like the level of competition as well that was in that year as well. Like all those things were going down basically in 2015. I think it really was.
There's a high point.
In my opinion,
I'd
it's the
say
most
that
competitive
peak
year
Warband.
of all
Yeah,
Warband
peak
ever.
Warband.
Like, I think I have to say that.
And I missed it by a year.
Oh, what was 2016 for you started?
Yeah.
It was competitive 2016. I played Warband like from 2013
I was
onwards.
gonna say, I'm sure I saw you before that.
Yeah, I played up, but that was just casual stuff like
Yeah.
PW Mercs, like just nowhere near like competitive.
Blimey, so late to the game. 2016.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of competitive eras, I mean, this is probably going to be like a total eye roll, at least for one of you, and if not, most of the people who are listening. But I think early dueling was actually like one of the most competitive things I've had in Warband.
Yeah.
Where it was like, because I mean, talking about taking breaks, there was a point where I was just consistently slapping everyone down in these tournaments. Like I was
Yeah.
just winning and winning and winning.
I mean, you got like 8 wins in a row. Like I
Yeah,
don't know,
I
loads,
was
like half
winning.
a
I
dozen
was
or
winning.
something. Yeah.
You know, I was getting to like tournament finals without losing a duel. You know,
Yeah.
not like losing a duel set, like losing a single duel in them. It's
Yeah.
like 7-0, 7-0, 7-0. And so I was at that point, and then I had like, you know, and at that time when I was doing really well, you know, like the now infamous Peter was like, he wasn't much to speak of. Like
Yeah.
he was like Toby's crap friend. Do you know what I mean? He was sort of walking around with Toby on editions, and like they were both there and they were both like good, but I wouldn't consider either of them like a big threat at that time.
No.
And then I had like a small break, like maybe like 3 months of just like not playing very much. Maybe just hop on, you know, once a week or something.
Yeah.
And I came back on after that, and like Toby and especially Peter had gone from like behind me. They hadn't just caught up with me. They'd like overtaken me in a big way.
Yeah.
Like that small break was all it had taken, and I was playing catch up, and I was like trying to grind it out. I was like trying to get back up, which obviously I didn't because Peter just rinsed me in Editions 3. It's like wasn't even close. I wasn't there, but yeah, like that. You know, like you could have 3 months off now, you know, in because the skill level now is really high, but you could
Yeah.
have 3 months off now from Battle Gibby, and you come back and you'd still be top tier.
Yeah, I mean, I've done it. Like when I played that one tournament with RM and Bannerlord, I played like no, I played in PuffTheDragon as well. Basically I joined a Div B team in for the Warband tournament, and I just played Cav in a Div B. Shemra was playing Archer in the same team as well. Like Shemra and I were in this team playing off roll. While like, I was because I was maining Bannerlord for that time, and then after that I went straight back into playing Div A, and it was completely fine. Like it's
like that's absolutely fine. But 3 months off then in that sphere,
yeah.
it's just like, oh, you're out. Like you've fallen behind, my son. Like you're out of it. You need to get on your grind, or you're not competing here.
Everyone's still pushing the edges at that point, though, aren't
Exactly. Yeah, and it wasn't just those two either. Like, you know, other people who were like more sort of bottom rung were like they were coming up and they were snapping at your heels already just after a small. That was a competitive time, as funny as it probably sounds to a lot of people.
No, I think because I think people have to separate competitive in their mind from like highest skill. If you know what I mean?
It definitely wasn't highest skill.
Because
like,
you have to, like you got to separate those sort of those things. Because I feel like I don't know
It's
when
Maximum, isn't it?
Yeah, when like Maximum and Arnie were beefing, like their duel levels were both so high then.
Yeah.
Like I would actually have to like go on a grind for like a month to be able to beat either of them when they were like that, right?
Yeah.
Or to even have a chance of beating either of them. Like, I don't want to say I would beat them, but like that's the sort of thing where that's sort of so temporary, and it's just these two guys that are doing it. But then there's nothing else going on in that regard competitively, even though they're such high skill. Whereas I feel like back then it is really the sort of thing where you've got like this like I mean the council and stuff. You got like this like 10 people who are like you got like 10 people who are like sick and like competing, trying to get better than each other, like actually trying to improve and like come up with new things, which just doesn't happen anymore. Like
sure, and I mean. As I say about people snapping at your heels, it wasn't even just like the duelists. Like obviously, there's people like they had a basis in duel. They played it a lot, like Deacon. Like in that same tournament in Editions 3, he almost beat Toby. And obviously, we've talked about Toby. You know, he has his problems with focusing on like winning in tournaments and stuff. But that's so above Deacon's level of dueling at the time.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you know, it was that thing of anyone can come through. You know.
Yeah.
So and there was a lot of that going on.
Yeah, so if you had to pick like your most competitive dueling year, right? So you can't say 2012 and 2013. You got to say one or the other. Which one would you say?
So long ago. I don't think you realise how bad my memory is.
we are literally talking about like 8 and 9 years ago. Like.
I mean, in terms of competitive, it was definitely whenever Editions 3 was.
2013 then. 2013.
That was competitive. Like obviously before then was like my more dominant time, so I was just cleaning up. But 2013 is when it's like, oh fuck! Like there's people who are, you know, they're as good if not better than me here.
Yeah.
I need to be on my grind. I need to be playing good. I can't get by going 150 for 2 on this dual server against like players who aren't good. I need to find good competitions to play against. And that was actually something that was, you know, quite hard at that point because, you know, like there was almost little cliques of dueling people like Toby and Peter who were practicing together and improving vastly. And it's like, if they're refusing to duel you,
Yeah, you can't learn it. Yeah.
you can't
learn it.
scope them out. You can stand with a fake name and hide
And
behind
watch
a
them,
little
yeah.
car and try and watch them, like holding your shift key, zooming in. Like,
You trying to tell us you're guilty of this?
well, I played for a year on Duel. I didn't even use my real name. You know, I was fake name all the way. Like I was constantly scoping people out. I was like that. But you know, if they don't want to play against you, if they don't want to practice against you, so you can figure them out, you're in deep trouble because then you've only got you've got like 7 duels to figure it out. You know.
Yeah, of course, because like this is at a point in time where like they're coming up with new tech and things. Like if you've never seen, if like Toby busts something out you've never seen before, you're in big trouble. Like.
That's gonna kill you 4 times before you work out what it is. Like it's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, I think that gives us quite a nice answer. So we could say this definitively on paper, unquestionably, 2015 most competitive battle year, 2013 most competitive duel year.
That's locked in.
That's locked
in.
Can't be contested.
That's for sure.
That's on the
tomes.
mean,
would you agree with that, Gibby?
I do.
You've done 1,000 duel tournaments at this point.
I mean, I do agree. Like 2015, like even though I wasn't a top player then, I was in like one walk in like the second half of that year. Yeah. It's still the sort of thing where like I remember the ECS2 streams, you got like the Razer logo on and stuff. Do you remember that one? Lust had like the Razer logo on the maps, like.
Oh, Captain Lust was good. Yeah. He did good things, man.
I mean, I like watching those streams. I have like very fond memories of like watching those like AECO matches, freelancer matches on those streams. Like obviously I wasn't playing in 2013, but like from what I've seen and heard, I mean, I don't know if you know this, Em, but Toby has sent me some of your like unlisted 2013 videos.
Have I got those?
No, you do. There's like some random ones of you just like dueling someone like 3 times.
What the fuck?
And you're just like you run around. I don't know how Toby has these.
I'm logging in. How's he got these links? Has he hacked my YouTube? Like...
This is from this is like
this
years
is why
ago.
You've been asking the
this is from years ago. He sent me these, but
I wouldn't even be surprised if he's keylogged me or something. he's been in my house. He's like replaced my keyboard with a keylog. Anything's possible with that geezer.
Yeah. No, but I think those are very fair answers. Ultimately, like anything post 2015, you can't really say is most competitive. Even if I think you can definitely contest highest skill, and I would argue past 2015 is highest skill.
I wouldn't even contend it. We had surprisingly high skill at that time. I think just because people were really grinding it out.
Yeah.
But you can't compete with the amount of hours and the amount of tech that people have both mastered and become familiar with over the years.
Just over such a period of time, because like think about it this way, like what if like for you, like I guess those like inverse sky feints or whatever were like a new thing you had to adapt to when you were already good, but like if you start learning when those are normal, then they're just another thing you do when you're learning to play.
It's another thing you do, and it almost fast tracks you a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
You know,
I definitely feel like you can improve faster now than.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, people prove it. Like people who aren't really dual guys get on, and they become what back in the day would be sick, and is now just normal. It's like we were saying earlier. It's the new baseline is so high.
Yeah.
Like, there is a lot more out there with like Warband matchmaking now. Like there's always a queue going on it. So if you're a new player wanting to play competitive, like half time you can throw yourself into loads of those matches to get a grip of it straight away.
Yeah. As much as I didn't get on with the matchmaking. Like that's not Warband stuff for me. It's
it's very wild.
For getting someone into what is now the format, 6v6s, getting them into having a play at that without having to join a team and go through all that stuff. It's quite good. People get familiar with the format.
I mean, as long as you don't get a lobby where you've got like Xerxes in there or something, because Xerxes noob farms. He noob farms so hard on matchmaking. Like the guy's not got his shield up in the right direction. He just headshots him straight up.
Yeah.
Like Xerxes goes insane. Like those sort of archers as well. I mean, don't want to say any of them are cheated, right? But like some of the archers you get on matchmaking are popping the heads of people that aren't paying attention instantly. Like
I won't say anything about archers either, because I'll have OGL coming breathing down my neck. He's always bringing up that none of the archers are ever proved guilty of cheating. Where we've had a few infantry cases that have been confirmed. And he's always dangling that little factoid in front of my face.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely some suspicious individuals, but ultimately, there's no way you can.
I mean, if there's no proof, and I mean, it's shit if that's what's going on. But if it's a game with shields, it's a game with fast-moving cav and like
ultimately
unblockable things like cav knockdowns and shield stances. Cheat like an aimbot isn't the end of the world if that's what.
Yeah, like you can shield yourself. These scum,
these absolute scum, if that's what they're using,
Yeah.
These villains.
Absolutely.
Naming no names.
It's like... No, but I mean, matchmaking can be fun. It's the sort of thing that I can go on and play a couple. I can't do more than like 3-4 games top a day. Like I can't do more than that, honestly. It gets to me too much. Like having a team where I'm like, by the end of it, Puff noticed. So by then, I'm literally shouting like, "Why is this guy doing this on my team? Like, why isn't my infantry with me?" Like, by the end of it, I'm literally shouting at like people doing the wrong things. Like, I can't do it.
I tell you what, that's one thing that it really has stepped the community up with, though, is people knowing what the right things are.
Yeah.
As much as it seems like no one on matchmaking knows what they're doing, everyone knows what the 6v6 meta is now.
Yeah.
Like you go into a match, everyone knows what they're doing. Everyone knows where it is you stand for the two.
And people even do drops, like people do it without
drops,
chatting.
yeah.
They do it without chatting.
Any
Like,
team,
people
any
literally
team
see
can
in
do
the
it.
bottom left of their screen it says the setup, right? It says like 222, and like, you can be playing with like whoever, and the infantry will do the right drops they need to. Because if they don't, they get like shouted at by their teammates.
They get
team chat,
bollocks, yeah.
like, yeah.
And it's like the amount of like you never got that many sort of match environment rounds under your belt back in the day as you do now, just playing matchmaking. Like no way. Like you'd have to play like just scrim after scrim
like
after
dozens
scrim,
of
which
scrims,
no one did.
like two a day.
No one did that. You do like a scrim a day.
Yeah.
If you're playing scrims, like no one did several scrims in a row.
Yeah.
Or we never did, because the couple of times we tried, we just played really bad after a while to just burnt out. But now everyone's just like, if you play a few games of matchmaking, it's like, well, you've got about 10 scrims under your belt, like
exactly.
in terms of like round experience. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's definitely helpful for getting like, it's helpful as a warm up for just getting in your head again, like when you're rotating, looking out for everything, and like it's definitely helpful to warm up for before a match.
Better than TG Arena for a match.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, 100%. I mean,
not for going in and blocking 5 guys and pretending you're still sick. Not as good for that.
Yeah. I mean, TG is good for cap practice. Seriously, like you go on there and just bump stab everyone, like, and they don't even know what they're doing. They just down block and run straight at you.
Could say the same with Archery as well. Just practicing your aiming.
Yeah.
Mechanical warm up. It's not like tactical warm up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, you can go on there as Archer until everyone starts spamming Archer and then some racial slur afterwards, like who plays Archer, you whatever. Like,
exactly. Yeah. you see insults you didn't even know existed.
Yeah, exactly. Like you definitely get that on TG. Like
yeah, it's you know, I do miss the battle servers, but
yeah,
I can see why matchmaking has taken its place. And I don't think it's going anywhere, at least for Warband. I mean, not that you've got a choice on Banlord, because it's like
on Banlord you can't even queue anymore. You can't. I mean, the queue time's like 10 minutes.
Oh shit!
Like the queue is dead. You do pickups or you play duel.
Is that the sound of death? Is the sound of death killed the queues?
It's been honestly like I've seen it. I've seen people with the sound of death.
Some
of the memes. Have you seen it? You know about it, Puff?
Yeah,
right?
I know.
I've seen some of the memes of that where it's like the dad breaking into the room with the belt, like time to play again, or like scrim time or whatever. And like it's. I mean, I don't want to comment on the development that you have to go into to put that in. You know, they put a warning on the game when you load it up when that was in. Please turn your sound off or you may damage your ears.
Turn your sound off. Keep your volume at a reasonable level.
They literally added red flashing letters when you started the game up saying that at the top of the screen.
Yeah.
So funny.
Like, how is that not something that you just roll back the patch and fix immediately?
Yeah.
Like, why not just roll back? But I mean that honestly, and like, do you remember that period where the multiplayer servers just stopped working? Was that were you playing with AE when they were playing a bit of Banlord?
Not really. I was giving it a go. I was playing like a little bit on the, what they call in a dual server, just to see if I liked the game at all, to see if I wanted to join in. But I didn't really go. Like it runs like shit on my computer, unfortunately. So I don't really have the option of playing it that much. But
I mean, I wouldn't play in this weather anyway. It turns your PC into like a heater.
Yeah, like... get another radiator in.
Yeah. But no, but like the whole competitive scene, not just competitive, the whole multiplayer died because the servers stopped working for like a month. I'm pretty sure that's why the AE guys completely stopped playing Banlord.
I think so.
Because like the servers just stopped working for a month.
Well,
and they didn't fix it.
If you can't play, you can't play, can you?
Yeah, and they just didn't fix it, and it just killed. I'm pretty sure it was in the middle of a tournament as well, and it just killed the competition completely.
Yeah.
And the scene was like tripled off, and then they have the sound stuff where it's like, oh, you can play the game. I actually didn't. I just refused to play the game during that period.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't play it.
I mean, I don't know what's going on inside Tail Worlds, but the person whose job I envy the least is Callum's.
He doesn't post anymore.
Well, I don't fucking blame him. I wouldn't post either. Like, I would keep my head down. It's horrible.
It's cursed, isn't it?
I don't blame him, and especially when he's got those sort of devs. I mean, I don't want to comment too much on the other devs specifically, but do you remember the one who just made up that figure about the vast
Pet
majority
monster.
of players? Yeah. The vast majority of players enjoy this feature, and we're like, what's this poll data? And everyone's like going ham on him on the forums. And then Callum has to be the one to step in, like, there is no poll data. He made it up. Like, imagine having to be Callum in that situation. Like,
yeah, it's not easy that, and I think even he was distancing himself from it at the time.
Yeah,
because it was difficult. Like,
I mean, it's...
that dev. I think there was an aspect of, like, I think he just thought, well, I don't know, it was just underestimating how much people care.
Yeah.
Or cared. Past tense, but it's like you know,
it is past tense.
past tense. But it was like, you know, I think he thought he could just sort of say stuff, and people wouldn't be that bothered, or people buy it, and it's like
you're saying it like a convention or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You just say it.
Yeah. You just say it just like you're Todd Howard, and you can just lie, and then everyone will forgive you.
Yeah.
But in actuality, all he did was just, like, all these people who, like, just have sweated over Mount and Blade for years,
and they've
was
been
like,
years,
they'll throw their
yeah.
money and their time. It's like, I'll host a Bannerlord server if you give me. Can I host it? Oh,
You know,
I've got a dedicated server ready to go. I already paid for one. Like,
I'll spend like 10 hours writing a balance post on what you should do with this faction.
Yeah.
Like,
I'll get your new players. I'll teach them how to duel.
Yeah.
I'll let them know the format. I'll make sure there's, like, a good environment to come into, because I'm an old head. I've been playing this 10 years. I'll make sure it's welcoming, and we get a good player base, because that's what I want as much as you want.
Yeah.
And actually, he just managed to turn all of those people sour within like 3 posts.
Yeah.
There's like 3 posts. Everyone's just absolutely steaming.
I mean, that was... I mean, Bannerlord is just... That beta experience was horrific in terms of, like, being so hyped for it. When they, like, invite these 3 teams, FT, Unity, and AE, and they're like, oh yeah, you guys are going to play it, and, like, we really want to hear your, like, competitive feedback, whatever. And then we're like, do you remember at the very start blocking didn't work? Remember you couldn't cancel attacks into blocks? And when you get that, you just sat there and you're like, wow.
This is a long way to go.
Like, this is what they've made. Like,
the one that really, because do you remember how, like, floaty the movement was to start with? Like,
I do, yeah.
Like, you change direction and your guy's still running for like 2 seconds.
He's gliding along, like,
and like Cav, it was even more pronounced.
Yeah.
And it was like, because we had that one desert map, didn't we, in the early beta? I was thinking, it's like, okay, you know, and because it's the desert map, I think you had the camel faction. And I got up onto that top level of that roof, and it was like, you know, me and the other A's who are playing in the thing, and we are having a bit of a laugh. And then out from the side of my screen, a camel just comes running sideways, like Tokyo Drift.
Yeah.
Just drifts onto my screen, and I fucking lost it. I was laughing my head off. I was just laughing and laughing for like 10 minutes. I couldn't believe my eyes. And like some people who were testing it with us, like, had to go in like other TeamSpeak channels because they thought we weren't taking it seriously. Well, it's just like, it's just the funniest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah. I mean, that state at the beginning, it went from literally me being like, I'm going to play this all day, I want to get my head start in Bannerlord, to being like, there's no point even playing this.
Changed in like the first round you play. Like,
I mean, the enthusiasm died after a couple weeks on the forums, because once you realize they actually weren't interested in doing what would it make it, like, I mean, even just saying, like, make it more like Warband, like that, now basically all the patches they do just are making it slightly more like Warband. Step
like
at a time.
baby steps towards it, isn't it?
I think they had such a good basic to go off though, didn't they? And I don't know why they've removed so many features. Like, even something simple, you know, we were talking earlier about spear stunning, even that you can't do that on Bannerlord.
And instead they've just got, if you have a heavy weapon and you do a side swing, there's just a percentage chance it will stun.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, just a normal attack. Like,
I mean, there's loads of stuff, isn't there?
Yeah.
Just beyond listing. Like in the duel, like, obviously, you know, I like duel, but like the beginnings of duel on Warband, you're like, oh wow, these mechanics are absolutely beautiful. Everything just works so nicely together. Like the amount of times you're stunned when you do something is perfect to then not be able to get another attack in, and the block stun on like a stab chamber, it's enough for you to get a free hit. If you like, this all works together so nicely. And you get on Bannerlord, and you can, like, the game's already only new, and you can already play it so degenerately.
I mean,
You had that duel. There was a duel tournament, wasn't there? And the guy was just
I think
shield bashing for every move or whatever. It's just
oh,
like,
was that
kicking.
Aprico versus Arnie?
I
Is that
think.
one you're
I
talking
mean,
about?
I'm working from sort of third hand
I mean, it was
information, I wasn't
Arnie,
watching it.
yeah, Arnie versus Apri. That was the one I think you're thinking about. And
Yeah.
Apri, basically, Arnie has, like, mechanically by far the best player in Bannerlord, unsurprisingly.
Yeah, without
And
a
he
doubt.
can do these absurd Bannerlord feints that honestly,
Mm.
they're like, what is he doing?
I've
Because
seen him
you
do
can
them.
break the
They're
animations
crazy.
in Bannerlord so
Yeah.
way harder than Warband, by the way. So
Mm.
that's sort of out the window, and they said they wanted to change that.
I know.
You can break
it goes
it
against
way
their
harder.
intentions so
Yeah,
badly.
you
doesn't
can
it?
break it way harder. But Arnie can do some absolutely absurd things. And basically, this guy had basically just conceded the fact he couldn't do that. So his plan was S key, shield bash if Arnie comes close, and then kick when he's at a distance. Kick spam. Because you know you can block if you kick.
Yeah,
if you miss.
Of course you can.
So you just spam
Yeah.
S key, just kick, and if Arnie gets close, just shield bash him away, and then keeps S keying and kicking. And he did that, and after Arnie beat him, and after that, I posted on the DM Discord, I atted him, and I said, "You're the most disgusting, cowardly player I've ever seen." I wrote like 5 sentences, just calling him an absolute weasel for playing like that.
I'm going to let you in on a private theory, right, about Bannerlord. And I don't know whether this becomes libelous, okay?
Yeah.
Or slander. I don't know laws, but it's So my personal theory is, I mean, I admire Armagon, or however you say his name,
Yeah.
because he's obviously a very skilled developer, and he put out my favorite game of all time that I spent a decade playing countless thousands of hours. Right?
Yeah.
You've got to love the man, genius.
Yeah, he did a great thing with Warband. Yeah.
I think the real genius may have been his wife, because if you look at like the press stuff for like original Mount and Blade all the way through to Warband release, it's always like brainchild of husband and wife team.
Yeah.
Armagon and his wife or whatever. Like they worked on it together. And then after Warband's release, you never see Armagon and his wife mentioned in the press anymore. And you think, would she have let Viking Conquest come out like that? when did she leave the Bannerlord dev team?
Yeah,
what year?
It's just suspicious stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, like honestly, you're thinking it's got to have been something like that. I mean, the dev team. I don't know what happened to like those original. I mean, how many of them were there? Like 5 or something.
I think something along those lines. Yeah.
But like, I don't know what happened to those original 5. But there can't be like many of them other than Armagon left. Like,
I'm not sure. But I mean, I know they had at the height of Bannerlord development. I think it was like 2013-14. I think they had like over 100 people.
Yeah, they're like over 100 devs or something.
Really? It's definitely not that now.
No.
I think it's a real skeleton.
I mean, they've got like 2 people working on the multiplayer. Like.
Yeah. It's not a priority, and I think they've slimmed it down.
I think they got so much backlash for the multiplayer that they've just given up on it completely. And I don't blame them. Like if I was making a game and my multiplayer scene hated it so hard that they spent that long like pointing every flaw out in like massive forum posts, I think you'd lose all motivation too.
Well, the motivation would be gone.
Yeah.
But I think, I mean, just from a business sense, they've got to see it as like just a loss now, haven't they? The multiplayer.
Yeah.
It's like maybe if we make the single player good and moddable, we'll have those guys who make like great Lord of the Rings mods or whatever, and the game will still be a cult hit when it eventually gets to its release, like Warband was.
But that's the thing though. They didn't release that to begin with, did they? Didn't release Bannerlord with modding.
Releasing it without modding and without dedicated multiplayer servers was the worst thing they could have done.
I cannot believe it still don't have dedicated servers.
Because literally the community has kept Warband alive for so long.
If it had dedicated servers, it would honestly be kept alive by like those 200-man clans doing shield wall battles. Like they would keep it alive.
I mean, I don't even play Warband. I still pay to host Warband servers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'd be hosting a Bannerlord server if I could, even if I don't like the game. But they don't want. Well, it seems like they don't want the community. They
don't want the community to be controlling the community. They want to control the community. And I wonder if that's some like. I mean, I don't know how much that's like them trying to do it differently to Warband, because in Warband it was completely hands off, right? But this is completely hands on. It's like a complete 180.
In Warband,
This is like 100. This is like complete 180. It's so hands on that the community can't do anything.
Yeah, hands on the throat.
Hands on the throat of the community. Yeah, literally, like, which is just like the complete opposite of what it was. And I think really it just needs like. It needs like the gentle pat on the back, like the hand on the shoulder to help them along. Like it doesn't need to be like completely controlled. It just needs some help from the devs.
Yeah, I just think it's a bit naive to not understand what the communities do for games like that. Like every game that's of that sort of ilk is powered by its community. It's not powered by, it's not powered from the top. That doesn't happen.
Yeah, it's just not gonna. You just can't augment those things as a dev. You
I mean,
have to let the community develop.
Yeah, the only games that are really powered from the top are like the big MOBAs, like League of
Yeah.
Legends, powered by Riot from the top, and they continually pump out content, and they have an absolute stranglehold on how tournaments are
Yeah.
run and so on and so forth. Like Mountain Blade Bannerlord isn't League of Legends. You know what I mean?
No,
It's like,
no.
it's not really the same kettle of fish. You can't run it the same way.
Yeah.
So I think it's a bit silly how they're doing
Yeah.
it, but
But I mean,
maybe they can turn it around. I mean, on a positive note, it's still got some of the things we love from Warband.
Yeah.
It's got the directional blocking, it's got the directional attacking, it's got little guys on horses on a map hitting each other. You know what I mean?
it's got archers to complain about. Like,
yeah, it's got archers that you hate, and in fact they're probably more hateful because they don't have to care about your shields.
yeah,
You know?
they just
There-
shoot under, around, over the top, like everywhere. Like,
Yeah, like there's almost the core of things that we and other people like.
yeah,
They're just not quite there.
yeah,
And I think the biggest thing that I dislike about Bannerlord, because I mean, even if it's only two people working on the multiplayer, from what I understand, they are making strides,
they are
making
now.
steps. Let's not say strides. They're making steps towards making it good. Like Bloody Death was telling me.
Yeah. Meaty's
I think
hella into it. Like,
he's big into it, and he was telling me the blocking in the next patch that's coming much better. He was saying it feels like night and day difference better. I mean,
it might be one of those games though that are just. It's going to take a year or so for it actually to start to resurrect itself.
I mean, it's been a year or so, hasn't it?
yeah,
The disappointing thing is the thing that they've apparently done to the blocking to make it good is something that I suggested very early on when we first got involved. And it's like, you weren't listening to us now. You're only listening to us when the iron is already really cold, when the big player base that we could have built is already gone.
you could, honestly, could have had a big player base.
We could have made it like we had people ready to go. We had people who've been doing tournaments for years and years, like Deacon and Scar, who've run all those WNLs, all those what are they called, the ECS, all the ECSs, all those things, all those years, massive experience. Like they've got it absolutely on lock. And they were ready to go. It's like, right, we're going to hit the ground running. We'll run like 1 to 2 tournaments.
Yeah, like divisions for like all the new teams as well. Like
they've got the formats ready to go that are going to work with like hundreds of teams, thousands of players. It's like we can still run this with our experience, but make it really good for the new guys.
Yeah.
And we've got all kinds of people in this community, but the kind of opportunity was really missed. And I don't think. If it does eventually, like a little while down the road, if it does eventually come out to like an all song and all all singing all dancing release, like a proper release, not an early access release, I don't think we're going to get that influx again.
No, you won't.
Because anyone interested has played the fucking thing.
Has played it, yeah, already.
And they were either impressed or they weren't, and they're either gone or they're not. We're not getting that big influx again.
No. Which I suppose is like a doom and gloom thing, but it just is a fact. Like, you're not going to get that influx again.
We won't get it.
Maybe you can recover it to like a decent state of a game, and then everyone will move on from Warband to Bannerlord. Like, that's the best hope.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I suppose that's enough doom and gloom about Bannerlord. Maybe we should get back to.
We started this off. It's like, let's not dwell on Bannerlord. Let's not speak about that because we spent like last quarter of an hour just rambling.
I mean, there's so much you can say. Like, I could do a whole I could do 10 hours. So I mean, I have done way more than that talking to Puff about it. Like,
yeah, for sure. Yeah. I don't know if it's talking, more whinging in it.
Whinging and whining. Like, oh, it could have been so good. Like, yeah.
How about the last time you played them in 2020, AE against Soida?
Yeah. Like, we want to know specifically. Did you feel like the game was different to when you played it before that?
Yeah, big time.
Like big meta shift, or
there was big meta shifts in all of it, and you had people playing really differently, people leading their teams really differently.
Teams got way more organised nowadays.
Yeah, there's a lot of organisation, and it's not it's not organisation from a leader necessarily. People are just kind of, I think it comes back to all those rounds that people are playing on matchmaking and stuff where they're just doing the right thing. Like a lot of the time in the olden days, when it was all sepia toned or black and white.
Yeah.
We had someone who was shot calling, but it was to a much more precise sort of degree. It was
Yeah.
like you two are going to that place, you stay there, and we're arranging people as
Yeah.
though it was like a very small scale RTS or like a Total War or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Whereas now you have very, very loose sort of idea of what you're going to do in the round, and you've got players with so much experience that they're going to
Just do the right thing.
do the right thing anyway. And
Yeah.
on a personal level, that's something that I struggled with, because I don't, my like mentality of what I'm doing in the round is very out of date, let alone 6v6, which I've never been good at. So like that tournament was a big struggle for me. It was quite a big struggle because I was doing a lot of commanding, which I also felt really rusty at.
Yeah, I mean, Habby is very hard to lead against. I mean, I've said this to Puff as well. Habby's entire leading style basically came about as a counter to FT.
Yeah.
Because like FT
and
was
I would
dominant.
say we do more of an FT style for
Yeah.
sure. And Habby man is like really oppressive. Very, very good tactical. Very good player.
He absolutely and like those players he's with, like Brian and Thor, and like the core he's with, like Brian, Thor, Matt, and like Lepash and stuff. Those are the core he was with from Unity. So they all know like exactly what they're doing with him. They know exactly what their job is. Like because his sort of leading style is just sort of like on the open maps especially, it's really like he's the solo imp. He's not gonna die. He's gonna drag their infantry, like the other team's infantry around, while 5 cav, and he's got like 5 top tier cav, and they're just gonna kill everyone.
Yeah.
While the archers shoot free. Like
it kind of left me in like a sort of cognitive dissonance of me like outwardly saying like, oh, this isn't the beautiful game that where's my 8v8, this isn't what I like. When actually I was just impressed, frankly. I like the way he leads the team, and he's obviously got something that really works.
I mean, like, it's sort of, I guess, like, Charlie and his style was like perfecting the push, right? It was like, right, we're gonna crash, like the infantry and the cav are gonna come in. The cav are gonna be there at the exact correct second when the spearman is pushed, and the round's gonna be over in 10 seconds.
It was just a hammer and anvil, wasn't it? Like when you guys pushed, it was like it was crazy.
He did it very well.
And then when I play with Habby, I'm always getting told like, Gibby, why are you pushing? Come back. And I'm like, oh, come on, like, I want to go in, like.
Well, like, he's the most attackable looking man, Habby, isn't he? But then you try it.
If you attack him, And it's the sort of thing as well where like, I don't know, it's so controlled even in like, I remember times where there's like 2 enemy infantry left and I'm like an imp for cav and an archer on my team, and I want to get in there and make room, right? He's like, no, just drag them away while your archer shoots them in the back, like. It's that kind of like, it's really logical, like it makes so much sense. It's just not necessarily what you'd want to do yourself,
But no, it was a struggle. Like a lot of the other AE guys got back into the game a lot easier than I did. I was having a bit of a struggle. Like Cleric, he got on that, and he hadn't played in
he hadn't played since WPL2. Like.
Yeah, like a long time he hadn't played, and he was getting back into it much faster. Like, he was cleaning people out. And a couple of others were doing well, and all the sort of mainstays. We got like obviously Peter was doing well and stuff like that. But it was a difficult tournament. It was fun to play. Obviously, it's probably the last Warband tournament we're going to play, I would think. But, and it's a shame to go out on a loss. When we've had so many wins, but it's also just like it's almost quite healthy that we can't come back after years and just beat the best team. It's good. It's good that the best team is now like a real stress to go up against. It's good.
It's evolved,
you still beat everyone else. Like, I mean, you still got to the finals.
That's not
and
good
the finals
enough
that's
not good enough for us. It's golden enough.
But I mean, that Oida team was like, it's like that Unity core plus like me, Yanksar, and Era from FT. So it was like, I mean, it wasn't like you were up against FT and Unity separately, like with a bit split. It was like basically both in one. Like
the combined forces of modern warbands.
It's
good though. It's nice to play. I love the game. It's nice to play the game again once in a while. And I occasionally, once every couple of months or something, pop on and have a few duels.
I mean, Warband's the sort of game I want to be able to, I mean, this is the stage you're at. Like, I want to be able to come on in like 10 years and just be like, oh, Puff, like, or whatever, you want to go on Warband, like first 7 or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just the sort of thing where you just go on for like a bit of that casual fun in like some years' time. But like right now, Warband, I mean, Puff is hella into it right now. Puff and Cobra are like on that.
You're grinding it, are you, Puff? You're still on there hard.
I've just come back a
Puff's
bit.
like leading top teams now. Like,
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I lead now
he's
as well.
he's trying to be
Very
he's trying to be the new Happy. Like,
Okay.
it's like the Spearman survivability stuff. Yeah.
Well, I mean, shit, the template's there.
Yeah.
You've seen exactly how to do it. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like some people, and honestly, surprising that there's a fancy league right now. Like, there are quite a lot of people in there who you're like, who's this guy? Like,
Yeah,
who is
exactly,
this? Like, honestly, like a few years ago, I knew everyone. Like, down to Div
Yeah.
C, I was like,
Yeah.
I know all these people.
Mhm.
But now I'm like, who's this? Like,
Yeah, we had a big conversation about it. Like, if you looked at the actual sign-ups, a large majority of them were like Turks and Polish guys. But the thing is, there were so many new names, and it was quite inviting, if you know what I mean.
yeah.
Because like a fantasy league with that many players feels a bit better than what the scene's been the last few months or before.
yeah, I mean,
That's
they
nice.
like capped the sign-ups and whatever, didn't they? Like, they stopped it.
Yeah,
at one
they
point.
did, yeah.
So,
Oh,
like,
we
well, they had to limit the sign-ups.
we had-
That's a
yeah,
good sign. Right?
because we didn't have enough captains. That was a problem as well.
Okay.
Like,
but yeah, I mean,
There were
the fancy
14-man
league had like
rosters.
170 people or whatever, which is good for a fancy league. Like, that's
Yeah,
170
really good.
individuals who've signed up to play a fancy league, not teams.
So where are these people? Is it like from these sort of Turkish communities and stuff? They don't usually play the Euro stuff, or is it like
yeah.
PW? Like, where
I
are these people
mean,
coming from?
honestly, like,
Mercs,
there's got to be
right?
some like Mercs influxes. There are like these Turkish communities, aren't they? They do their own tournaments and stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
There are
definitely,
a
there's
few-
people coming from there.
there are a few matchmaking players now that you know them.
Yeah, there's
as
like a match.
matchmaking
Yeah,
players.
there's like
There's
oh,
like groups of them now.
yeah, like honestly, like the fancy league stream, there's like the commentators are like, oh yeah, this guy's a matchmaking player. And you're like, because there's like that community of people who play matchmaking like
But
regularly.
they don't play like
Yeah,
tournament matches.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they
yeah.
don't play in teams. They just play matchmaking
Huh.
all the time.
That's why it's like the new pub stars. But
Yeah,
they're, like,
yeah, exactly.
they're actually functional because they're playing in a match environment. all the
Yeah, so
time.
so you can actually take you can actually get them on a team and they know what they're doing. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
they
that's cool.
they play it a bit like, because they obviously, if you get someone like that on your team, they're going to play it kind of like they're going to be very individualistic because they're used
Yeah.
to playing with no team communication. So you can get like some issues with that, but like they know what they're doing generally. So
Oh, that's cool.
yeah, it's interesting.
I wonder if that's going to evolve. You know, that you've got that really big separation in terms of like matchmaking and tournament guys. I mean, surely they see you like the tournament guys going on there, and they want to get involved sometimes.
Yeah,
Maybe-
like I mean,
Maybe some of them have just done it already. and
There's
they
there's
wanna
sort
make-
of players that like, I mean, like some like groups of matchmaking players make like a Div B level team.
Yeah,
And,
Okay.
like
they've done that. The last
and yeah,
tournament,
yeah.
yeah, the last tournament we had way more Div B teams that we've ever had. There was loads of them, and a
Yeah.
couple of them were just like Mercs.
Yeah,
not
because
Mercs
like they
players.
will sign up as like free agents or whatever, and like then they will
Yeah.
sort of like conglomerate together and make a team out of like matchmaking people.
Yeah.
So
I mean that Mercs is a funny. Like I've never played Mercs, but a lot of good players come through Mercs now, don't they?
yeah.
Well, they
I mean,
have done for the last years.
I mean,
I have it as an equivalent in my head to like CRPG. And back in the day, people who mainly played CRPG were always garbage when they came to native. They were just always shite.
yeah.
But the people who come from Mercs to native, I don't know if Mercs is just closer to native or something, but they've always got quite good
Yeah.
technique. You know, they're quite good players, and they're usually
It's quite
you can just
melee.
pick
I
them
mean,
up.
I think
Yeah,
Mercs has
melee-based for sure.
quite like a
Yeah.
healthy clan war scene.
Mm.
Like they do like clan, like I mean, you can go on the Mercs server. The clan wars are public, so you can see who's playing and what their scores are. You can see that for everyone that plays one.
Okay,
And
so
you can-
there's a lot of stats involved.
Yeah,
People
yeah.
like to get their stats.
And
up.
you can see, you know, there's like 10 to 15 clan wars going a day between all these different clans.
Oh Christ! Fair
So
enough.
like it's still like, you know, there's
That's
still
quite
stuff
active,
going
isn't
on.
it?
there.
Like,
Yeah,
that's not
yeah,
bad
like-
at all.
And like even right now, like I'm playing NW and stuff as well, and like and people from my NW regiment I play with, we made like a Mercs clan as like it's like an entrance way, I guess. Like it's so much easier to start playing Mercs because you just play
Yeah.
against the weaker clans. Because
That's
there's still
funny.
those things, yeah.
Yeah, it was always. It used to be for like maybe sort of like I don't know when Mercs came out, but maybe it's like 27 onwards. Like if you saw random people you didn't know, if they were on Battle, they were from Mercs, and if they were
Yeah.
if they were on Duel, they were from PW.
Yeah.
It was always like someone Stark of Lothlorien on the Duel
Someone
server. It's like, oh right, okay, you're from PW anyway.
Yeah, with the like Kingsguard, whatever.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Yeah, some weird rank.
No, I mean PW had sort of like a bit of healthy duel competition, I guess, in terms of like they had a lot of beef with each, because like they're like the clans would have beef with each other, and
Yeah.
they would get the PW would get quite nasty in that regard. Honestly, like it was very toxic. It's the sort of thing that I never enjoyed. I mean, like the PW clans would be like, "Oh, Gibby, can you come on and do this duel for us, whatever, to win the honor for our clan?" Like, but I was never interested in it beyond doing a couple of things like that.
Yeah, that's. I mean, that like we were talking about. Oh, a bit of competitive toxicity is quite good. That's not really competitive
No,
toxicity. Is it? It's just
it's
like
just
just all,
toxicity.
like people getting all mad because the rules aren't being followed or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like slightly weird community, isn't it?
Yeah. But
There's some
anyway,
good players out of it. You know?
yeah, like from Mercs and CFG and stuff. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
Mercs players like Norman guy, for instance, came from Mercs as playing Cav, and
Yeah.
I think it's actually Mercs is good Cav practice. I find as well because if you get reared up, you can't block. So
Yeah.
like you sort of learn very hard. Don't run into things. Like you keep.
I
You
think
can get punished quite a
I
bit.
think a lot of Cav came from mods
Yeah.
where because Cav in native early on was quite punishing in the way we had it set up in the EU.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't that easy to learn and become really good at. But like Shemmer, I think, spent a lot of his time early on in CRPG, like mixed between CRPG and
Yeah.
native, and I think he got very good because he was playing CRPG, because it was like you're not really waiting as long, you're just getting
Yeah,
round
just
after
constant
round after
action.
round
Yeah,
of
yeah.
cav action,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's the sort of thing people come from, and Puff is one of them as well. So
I am, yeah. I came from Mercs.
You're a merc, are you?
I am,
Yeah.
yeah. I transitioned in 2016
Okay.
from Mercs to native.
How long were you mercs before 2016?
I think like 2 years
Okay.
or on and off because it was when I used to play PW back then as well.
Blimey.
Yeah.
Fingers in all the mods. I've never been a big mod player. Like.
I've like played them a bit, like off and on, but yeah, never.
That's how I actually got into Warband with one of my IRL friends, and he said he found the PW mod,
Oh, really?
and that's how online started. Yeah.
Mine was like, God, it's such a weird story. Like, I met one of my IRL friends in Warband just coincidentally, and then the
That's
next
so
day, and then
weird.
the next day at school. No, I didn't know it was him in game. For the next day at school, I was telling him about the event I'd done the day before, and he was like, "Wait." Because he was there, like he was at the same like
That's
event,
insanely coincidental.
and there were only like 60
what on
people at the
earth?
event. It was on Full Invasion, and it was a Full Invasion event, and he was there, and I was like, "What?" So then I like
That's
joined his
mad.
clan and got into it. Like,
That's so weird. Do I know him? Who is it?
no, you won't know.
Okay.
It's on Full Invasion too. Like,
Oh, okay. Full Invasion 2 clan. Yeah. I don't know.
yeah. But yeah, it was like the sort of thing where like that happens, and you're like, that immediately gives you some interest in the game. So like,
That's
Yeah,
crazy.
got me
though.
into it,
The
like-
odds of that. Must
Yeah,
be
like
astronomical.
literally my IRL friend, like I had tech with him the next day. It was like year 9 at school, like. But
Mental.
yeah. Anyway, let's do our last topic
Our last
and try and
topic.
cover it in like 10 minutes and then stop.
Okay.
Which is what makes a player a good infantry, and is it different to what makes someone a good duelist? Your thoughts, please.
Oh, what a spicy meatball.
Yeah,
It
this
is,
could
yeah.
be a whole like 90 minutes, couldn't it? Like,
It actually could.
Yeah.
And I've seen this argument in AE WhatsApp like 100 times. Like this because I mean I'm sure you can imagine who's on either side of it based on just who they are.
yeah,
But, I'd say my answer with that has actually changed quite a lot over the years because early on, basically every duelist who I considered like good, all the ones who are getting good successes, all the ones who are like making their names in good teams,
yeah,
they all had a basis in duel. Like
yeah,
I can't think of many exceptions at all. Like or they had some special skill. Like Christo the Vicious wasn't a duelist, and he also wasn't much of an infantry, but he could throw jabs like nobody else in the game. So it's like okay, well,
Yeah.
he's still a top infantry, but not really for his melee. Um, but everyone like all the top, your scars, your deacons, your clerics, all of these guys, and loads of ones in other clans as well. Even people like Blacktide did a fair amount of dueling. Like they're
yeah,
all of them back then. It was all dueling, and I remember I was talking to like I had basically the same question from Captain Lust in like 2012. He was talking to me about it. He's like, do you think it's like good how much you've dueled for like battle stuff?
yeah,
I was like, well, I can't think of it as a disadvantage because at that time where I was just like winning duel tournament after duel tournament after
yeah,
duel tournament. If I'm in a 1v1 in a battle, I know I'm going to win it. I knew it to the fullest extent. It's like this isn't like, oh, I've got really good odds. I'll probably like I'm going to win the 1v1 like without doubt. Obviously not in practice. Sometimes I lose it, but I knew in my
Yeah.
heart. I was like, I'm going to win this, and it's like that kind of confidence is
Yeah.
absolutely priceless. I think
Especially in clutch moments, it's just
Yeah.
good to have that player, isn't it? Yeah.
I like you've been in a 1v1 thing with
a big group of people watching you before, where the pressure's just on you and you've got to stay calm.
And you
gotta
feel
win it.
your heart always goes so hard in those.
Yeah.
When everyone's watching, like.
Like if you're a battle player inf and you've got all those people watching you, you've probably never done it before.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas if you've been in some dual tournament finals, it's like, yeah, done some of these, like this is okay. And that kind of confidence, I think you can't get that just playing battle. However, nowadays, like, and we've talking about how much the game has evolved over time, and it's like it's a sort of a different game. There's different sort of ways of playing it. The format's different. The way maps are played are different. The maps themselves are different. I would say that's also different. I don't think that's the case anymore. And you've got Inf like the prime example I always think of is Anchor.
Yeah.
Sorry to just give you A examples. Okay, those are just the ones I know. But
repping your own men.
Exactly. Yeah, they're just the ones I know. Like, they're the perfect example. Because Anchor, like, he doesn't duel.
No.
He's shit at duel. Like, absolute crap. And in fact, he's probably even worse at like 2v2s, 3v3s. You know, like shit shield fighting. Absolute dog shit. I never want to do one with him again. He's so annoyingly bad. But like, he is absolute top tier imp. And I think there's not a team still playing Warband now who would like take me over him in for like a battle team.
Battle scenario,
you'd have to be stupid. Like he's better imp than I ever was, and he's really good now. And he's just absolute crap at duel. So you can't say you need it.
I think infantry though nowadays has moved away more from individual skill into making as many right decisions in the imp fight.
Exactly. So it's like, you know, like I was saying, like I had that confidence back then where it's like, oh, if I'm in a 1v1, I'm going to win the 1v1. How often is it that it's a win condition in a match round that an infantry wins a 1v1 now? That's irrelevant. That doesn't matter.
You're very, very rarely fighting one enemy infantry for longer than a couple of seconds. Like.
Exactly, yeah.
Like maybe you get on an archer who's not a very good melee guy, but it's like that it doesn't matter if you're Gibby on that archer or if you're, you know, like a mid-tier infantry, you're still going to blow the archer up.
Yeah. I mean, it is always fun when you push the archer and you just nuke them with like the inverse feint and they just have no idea what they're doing. That's the only time I get to do that anymore.
Everyone can handle my shit now, mate. I wouldn't know that feeling anymore. Like everyone's just blocks me all day.
Yeah.
I think that's why though certain archers like Maximo have like risen up, because I think dueling isn't useful for infantry. I think it's most important for archers.
I mean, in
a round,
I actually agree.
Yeah, in a round, they're most likely out of the entire team going to be the people that end up in a 1v1 situation.
Yeah.
And if you're an infantry, if you're an archer that gets pushed by an infantry and you kill him and you can resume shooting, then that is fucking golden, isn't it? You're too powerful.
Yeah, it's like normally if I push an archer, the archer's going to esky and try and survive. But it's like for most infantry, if you push Maximu, you push him, then you start eskying. While he tries to kill you.
He's gonna unleash something you've never seen before.
Exactly,
especially if you don't have a basis in duel. Like I mean, I feel like, you know, as ropey and old as I am, I feel like if I'm pushing Maximu, I can at least fight him.
Yeah.
It's not, you know, I've got that basis. And he's going to come at me because he's got that basis as well. He's got like big duel history. But, you know, if you're one of these guys who hasn't got that, maybe you don't fancy it. And I think it probably isn't a good tactical decision for you to go and 1v1 him, frankly.
Yeah.
So it definitely has its place. I would say it's maybe dual players don't make the best infantry anymore, but having it under your belt, you've got to see it as an advantage still.
Yeah. I mean,
if it's not at the expense of everything else, because we've all seen the shitty duel kids in the past who tried to play battle. And it's like, oh, they don't realise there's cav on the map. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We've all seen them.
Yeah. But me and Gibby have had to the conversation about this. How if you're a dual infantry, probably the best way to play is be way more survivable than the other imp at the beginning of the round, because you want to stay. Then you stay alive.
Of what I do. I'd get headshot before the point starts. That's like around in my life.
But if you're a good dueler, if you just focus on surviving for like the whole initial start bit, when the round starts to get nitty gritty down to like the 3v3s and the 3v2s, then you can shine more.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Yeah.
I definitely agree with the arch point as well. I hadn't really considered that, but that's definitely true. That's much more of a skill for them.
Yeah.
And you sort of see more of them, don't you? That sort of duelist archer. That's more of a thing now.
Yeah, definitely. Like you see quite a few actually of the top archers these days are quite strong in melee.
Ex-duel kids retired.
Yeah. But obviously, like I mean, you got people like Matt, right, who was never the greatest melee warrior, but he was still a top archer just by virtue of his shooting.
Just his unbelievable way.
Yeah, just hit shots. If you're doing that at the end of the day, you're doing your job as an archer, aren't you?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I think that's the case for all of these things. It's like you know, like Chris the Vicious with his jabs, like Matt with his shots. It doesn't matter if you're the absolute complete package who can duel, who can you know, who can do absolutely everything. If you've got one thing that puts you over the top, it puts you over the top. You know.
Yeah.
And I would say dueling isn't one of those things really anymore. Maybe it was in the early days. Dueling's not going to put you over the top in the same way having unbelievable bump stabs is going to put
It's
you
going
over
to
the
give
top.
you one of those slight advantages, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't playing in 2012, right? But I'm imagining that in battle you got more 1v1 opportunities than you do like these days.
You definitely did.
Yeah.
And it wasn't necessarily just 1v1s as well. I mean, it was like, you know, small scale melee. So you know, when the imp hit, the archers were good at that time, but even in that time, there was like a meta where it was really reliant on crossfires. It was like crossfires were what you're aiming to do basically every round. Cav hadn't quite picked up to the level where you were, you know, bump stabbing every single time you tried and getting away with it without dying. You know, it was the archers were like the focal point of every round.
Yeah.
And even with that going on, you still got quite a lot of melee. You know, you still get, you know, you get fight, especially on closed maps like you played like Northtown and stuff like that. You'd get bits where you were like isolated from archers who maybe weren't positioned right, and you'd get like a 2v2 or a 1v1 or whatever. And that was an aspect of the game. That's definitely petered out because everyone's positioned well. Everyone's a killer with a bow. You know, you're not getting to open up without getting shot.
Exactly,
the Cav aren't going to let you really fight. You're just getting ping ponged from every side as infantry really these days.
Yeah, I mean, I remember in like 2015, 2016 hearing like it was like a saying like, oh, if you're like dual players are bad at battle. Like I remember that was when I was playing 2015, 2016. That was something people said, and it never made much sense to me. If I'd look at like the top teams, I'm like, well, this guy's a really good duelist. This guy's a really good duelist. He's a really good duelist.
And I think a lot of that was because they didn't realize quite how many, like, you know, you obviously there's like the two-handed prominent duel guys. It's like, oh, you recognize those as duelists, but they weren't recognizing the fact that, you know, all the AE imp before they became AE imp were on the duel server doing one-handed duels as well.
Yeah.
Like 90% of their warband time, they were grinding it because it was so beneficial. So it's like, it's like as much as that was said, probably by people who had just got on dual servers and been a bit salty because they got slapped about.
Yeah, basically.
You know, they were the primary people saying that, I think. But as much as they were saying it, they just weren't recognizing that all the teams that were also beating them in battle were just stuffed to the rafters with duelists.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's a good answer to it, right? It's like it's a skill you could have under your belt and can help you situationally, but you don't need it to be good at battle.
It's a tool on your belt, and I think the mentality it gives you is even more of a tool on your belt than the skills themselves. Because if you're in that situation and you're calm and you feel like you're going to win it, you're probably going to win it. You know, it's more important than having like the sky feint in battle, because who's doing that? It's you know, yeah.
Would you say then survivability is the most key thing of battle nowadays?
Probably. I mean, you have to like. I would say the most sort of influential imp in that last tournament that we were talking about. What was that? Was that
WRL? Yeah.
WRL. The most, like, Habby was the most influential imp in that tournament, and his main shtick is that you can attack him, but he won't die, and you will.
Yeah.
Whether he's the one killing you or not, irrelevant. He survived.
And you didn't.
Yeah. I did say this about Gibby, where you've got to get in your head that if you survive, like if you have the option between hitting an opponent and not receiving damage, you should always pick not receiving damage, because it always opens up more opportunities to hit more people further in the round.
Yeah.
Like you could get one hit, but you're risking getting hit. There's no point.
And then if you get hit, you might get chained. Like.
Exactly. Yeah. It's better just play passive and go for the easier hits, the 2v1s, the switches. You just get way more damage off like that, and you just survive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's definitely true. And I think we all sort of knew back in the day that was going to be the eventual evolution of, you know, when we were like, we were in that sort of Archer Crossfire meta. And it's like we were already feeling lucky if we got those, you know, those melee versus melee fights, and we were like, it felt already by then that it was like a time, like a thing with a best before date on it. You know, it's like this isn't going to last. Eventually, these archers are just going to pop us in the head.
Yeah.
And they do now. And
the Cav, archers are filthy.
I think it's the Cav now. It's just unbelievably sharp. Like, you have single Cav in like 6v6 teams that do as much damage and influence on a round that like 3 cav used to do in AV8 back in the day or whatever.
Yeah.
They're bouncing around. Everything they do is a bump stab that they're getting away scot-free on. You know, they're really good.
Yeah, definitely. Like cav can be so. I mean, you have those sort of, I guess, moments where you're like, oh, there's cav player at this point in time was like, this guy was the cav squad. Like this guy was doing more work than the rest of his cav squad together, and you would just like the round would start, the fight would start, and you just see him stacking the scoreboard immediately. Like
yeah, you definitely see him. Like we've relied on Peters to do that some tournaments when our cav were on a low point.
He's been an absolutely murderer, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's been a murderer for years and years and years. But you see others, you know, you get like, I don't know if he's still active and big, but Sir Alex was big for that. Like Siegs is obviously big for that when he's on his game. You know, they're unbelievably influential in a game, and that is one of the big reasons that you have that stratification that we were talking about earlier, where you've got like just a couple of good teams at the top. Is that
it's the cav?
There's only so many of those cav. And they're the big difference maker. Like if you've got Siegs in your team, or I don't know if he's the modern equivalent. Like I'm a bit out of touch, but if you've got Siegs in your top team, it's like you're a top team.
Yeah.
Whereas if you've got the guy who's like a little bit worse than that, it actually turns out he's quite a lot worse than that, and your team is further down. You know what I mean? They're the real difference.
The cav really makes it like. Yeah. Because the different stacks, you got to think about it. Like even if the guy is like, I don't know, if we're talking like list points, right? If he's like 10 points worse than Siegs, you can get away with it if he's like your third or fourth cav in your lineup, right? But if all of your cav are those and you don't have any of like the 99 points, whatever, then you're really lacking because you don't have one of them. Yeah. And the other team's got one and they're going to kill everyone.
As important as it is to have, you know, good smart points and everything. Like if you've got low smart inf, your team's not suffering as much as it is if you've got low smart cav.
The cav are going to do it, yeah.
Even lower smart archers is okay. It's like, it's not as good, because if you've got one of those killers, like if you've got Matt, he's going to pop heads. But, yeah.
They're just additions that come after, though, aren't they, really?
Yeah, I mean, I think the cav has always made it, to be honest.
We're basically second-class citizens at this point.
Yeah. the infantry are the ones, they get all the shit if you lose the round as well.
Yeah.
That's just true. Like, infantry get all the shit if you lose the round, they get none of the credit if you win the round. Like,
I think you need someone who's not an infantry on your show next time. This is just an infantry circle jerk now. Right?
It's true, honestly.
But this has been fun. I've enjoyed being on.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've answered that pretty soundly, so
yeah,
I think we can bring it to a close now.
Well, it's been fun talking to you guys.
Yeah, it's been fun talking to you about your distinguished Warband legacy. Even if we did get a little bit sidetracked with the absolute doom and gloom, it's like we're seeing the end of the world before us. Like,
you know, invite Grandad back on another time. I'll regret it.
Read us a couple more books, eh?
Yeah. Pull up a chair, young ones.
But yeah, so thank you for coming on.
Oh, you're welcome.
And maybe some point down the road, if we keep going with this, we'll have you back on to see if anything has changed on your perspective on any of these things. Maybe a bit more meta stuff, like
Yeah, sounds good. Maybe I'll play a couple of games of matchmaking before, so I've got some fresh stuff to complain about. You know, I'll have my finger on the pulse then.
But yeah, thank you very much, and see ya.
Cheers, guys.